Hi, good evening, everybody. We apologize for coming back a few minutes late, but we're excited to be with you all tonight, and we're excited for another great meeting. We are back from closed session. We did not take any action in closed session, so we're going to reconvene the open session, and we're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. And if Priscilla Zamora can join us up here and lead us in the pledge.
Please put your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, for liberty and justice for all.
So Monroe Elementary School is proud to have Priscilla Zamora representing their community and leading the Pledge of Allegiance tonight. Priscilla is a sixth grader in Miss Villaseñor's class. She is a great scholar who takes responsibility very seriously, and she is always reliable. Priscilla is a leader in one of the 21C personalized learning classes at Monroe, and she enjoys the flexibility of having the option of learning independently as well as with the whole group. Her preferred device is the Chromebook, and her preferred academic site is the Khan Academy for math concepts. Priscilla is planning to go to Cal Poly Pomona someday to become an architect. What inspired you to be an architect?
Okay, I loved art and making things, just creating things. I kind of have the creativity and I love building.
That's great. And Monroe Elementary is very proud to share Priscilla with you tonight. Priscilla, do you want to introduce your family in the audience?
Oh, my mom's here.
Thank you, Priscilla. If you and your family want to stick around for the student performance or the remainder of the meeting, you're welcome to, but we also know you got homework and other things to do, so you're welcome to go home too. All right? Thank you for being here with us this evening. Before we get on to the group performance, I wanted to recognize two students from Ramona High's media production team who are CTE students in the back helping with our production team here. So Samaya Cunningham and Sebastian Salazar in the back there. All right, thank you for being here. We're always excited to get our students involved, especially with our CTE programs, to get some experience in running these meetings. So thank you, too, for being here tonight. I also wanted to recognize our student board member, Montserrat Alvarado. This is her first meeting with us, and just wanted to give you a moment if you wanted to introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Montserrat Alvarado. I'm a 12th grader at Arlington High School. Overall, through this experience, I hope to contribute by adding a different perspective as a teenager, and overall, rooting for inclusivity and acceptance through diversity. So I also want to add that I am hoping to major in the Spanish language and minor in Chicano studies. So wish me luck. I just sent my UC applications last week, so thank you.
Welcome to the dais, Montserrat. We're excited to have you participate in our meetings. All right, so next we're going to have a group performance from Castleview Musical Theater Group, which is why I'm guessing this room is so packed. They have quite the reputation, so we're really excited that they are able to share with us this evening. So with that, I think, Ms. Sperry, are you going to introduce your team out here? We're just going to let him go. All right, you got a student to do it.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jada McConnell, and I am a part of Castleview Show Choir. I have been in show choir since second grade, and it means the world to me. Show choir has not only been lots of fun, but it helps people and me earn skills to help us give better presentations with more confidence in class. If I could stay in show choir forever, I would. I now proudly present Castleview Show Choir, who will be doing a scene from Wacky Wizard of Oz, which is a play that we did in the spring and then we did again in the fall. We will also be doing a song from our upcoming Christmas play, I've Got a List. Please enjoy. Bienvenidos todos. Me llamo Jada McConnell y soy parte del Castleview Show Choir. Yo he estado en Show Choir desde el segundo grado y lo amo mucho. Gracias a Show Choir, puedo decir con confianza una presentación en la clase. Ahora voy a presentar al Castleview Show Choir, quien va a hacer una parte de la obra Wacky Wizard of Oz, y también vamos a hacer una canción de nuestra nueva obra de Navidad, I've Got a List. Por favor, disfruta.
Did you guys hear something? Yeah, I think I heard that too. Oh, that was just my stomach. I haven't eaten all day. There it was again. That definitely wasn't my stomach. I think it came from behind the bushes. Let me check it out. Oh, what is it? Is he a Tin Woodsman? I haven't a brain in my head, but he sure doesn't look like tin to me. Look here. There are directions on his test. To operate, place key in slot and winder counterclockwise. Well, that seems simple enough, but where's the key? Let's look for it. Oh, I just hate getting dirty. I found it. I found it. Let's put it in the winder mouth. Yes, that's it. He's winding. This is the first time I've stretched in ages. I know the feeling, pal. Try being hung up on a pole in the middle of a cornfield with the blazing sun ruining your complexion. Sir, you surely got made from tin. So what is this crazy material? Well, I'm made from a revolutionary material. I'm made from tough, durable plastic. I never rust, corrode, or break. The problem is that somebody is always dropping or losing my key, and I don't have the time to find it. By the time I realize that I
Dear Santa,
I know that I can count on you. Dear Santa,
dear Santa,
make my Christmas dreams come true. Dear Santa, Christmas Eve, Santa's about to leave on his yearly Christmas whirl. Up and away on his magic sleigh, goes for every boy and girl. It's a special night before he takes his flight. You see, I've gotta set him right, 'cause I got a list. Yeah, I got a list. Santa's tweet, that was very sweet, but got lost in cyberspace. Oh, I don't reflect how he missed my text. Gotta see him face to face. I am very late, how I procrastinate. You see, I'm gonna communicate, 'cause I got a list. Yeah, I got a list. I friended him on Facebook. I read every Twitter too. We're linked together forever, so I know that he'll come through. My list is short because I'm not the sort to go ask for everything. I've always tried to be satisfied with everything you bring. You know you're the most, you fly from coast to coast. Dear Santa, won't you read my post? 'Cause I got a list. Yeah, I got a list. Now Santa knows my status, and he checked it once and twice. But up there in the stratosphere, can he see that I've been nice? Dear Santa, dear Santa, dear Santa, dear Santa, dear Santa, dear Santa. My list is short because I'm not the sort to go ask for everything. I've always tried to be satisfied with everything you bring. We know you're the most, we fly from coast to coast. Dear Santa, won't you read my post? 'Cause I got a list. Yeah, I got a list. And I'm glad you exist. And I'm trying to resist. And oh, dear Santa, I got a list.
Let's give them one more hand as they get off the stage there. Great job, Castleview students, and Ms. Sperry for leading them. We're really thankful for Ms. Sperry for being a volunteer at Castleview for as many years as she has and leading that choir, or that show choir. All right, next up is the organization of the board. Dr. Hanson.
Okay, thank you, President. And this is our annual organizational meeting.
May I make a
Parents, you can go ahead and excuse yourself, meet your kids out back.
Hey, Brent?
There's a Dairy Queen right down the street. They deserve a milkshake tonight on their way home. Thank you for coming and supporting your kids in our district. Yes, Mr. Hutt? Or take 5 minutes?
No, it's just wait.
Yes.
Is that permission? I'm guessing those parents didn't know about our exciting data dashboard conversation later. They might have
They
stuck
might
around.
have stayed.
Go ahead.
All right, thank you, President Lee. As I mentioned, this is our annual organization meeting of the board. And at this time, I'll conduct the election for the office of president. And would any board member like to make nominations at this time? Mr. Hunt?
Thank you, Dr. Hanson. I would like to make nomination for president of our vice president, Mrs. Patricia Locke Dawson.
Okay, thank you. And is there a second to the
Second.
motion? Thank you, Mrs. Alavi. Are there any further nominations? Then at this time, the nomination of Patricia Locke Dawson for board president. Please vote at this time. All in favor? And it is unanimous, 5-0. Congratulations, Mrs. Locke Dawson. At this time, the newly elected president, Mrs. Locke Dawson, will preside in conducting elections for the office of vice president and clerk.
Thank you, Dr. Hanson. Thank you, board members, for your confidence in me, but I have some big shoes to fill. At this time, I would like to take nominations from the dais for vice president. Mrs. Alavi?
I would chime in here, but it hasn't reset yet. I would like to nominate Dr. Angela Farouk for vice president.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second for Dr. Farouk to accept the nomination, Dr. Farouk? Okay, all right, let's vote. All right, we're missing somebody. Oh, two more. Oh, because we've got our student board member, huh? Another one, somebody? We're still missing somebody? Remember, push your little blue guy first, and then your plus sign. Did you vote, Monserrat? And Tom, you did too? Okay, we're missing somebody. I don't know. There's only 5 votes up. We should have 6. Okay. All right. So that motion carries. Congratulations, Dr. Farouk. You are vice president. Okay. So now we will take nominations for clerk of the board. Anybody from the floor? Dr. Farouk?
I'd like to nominate Kathy Alavi.
Okay.
Second.
Second by Mr. Hunt. Mrs. Alvey, accept the nomination. All right, please vote, board members. All right, that carries. Congratulations, Mrs. Alvey. Okay, so everybody has to bear with me because we switch over and then I have to run the meeting and get used to using the electronics. So. Traditionally, we switch seats when somebody becomes a new president, but for tonight and tonight only, we're going to stay in this order because it would be really disruptive to the meeting to have to switch all of our electronics and our voting orders. So, but next time you come, you will see us in different spots. Okay, thank you. All right. So, board, I know you know we've all had a really great year under Mr. Lee, and I know that you all would like to say a few words. I do have a gift from the board, Mr. Lee, that we would like to give you, but I would ask the board if you would like to say a few things before we give Mr. Lee his parting gift. Mrs. Alavi.
Thank you. I hope you like this gift. This was a group effort, so everyone will get a chance to see it in a minute. But I just want to say that in every respect, you exceeded my expectations this year in a great way. You were more erudite, you were more comfortable in this role as president, you were available, you were on top of things, you were organized. I just want to say how impressed I was with your leadership this year and really think you did a great job. So thank you, Brent.
Dr. Farouk?
Well, I'm really proud of Brent's year as president. I don't know how you do it. I mean, with your kids, your family, your business, everything. But I think a lot of us can't imagine really the amount of time you spent behind the scenes with a lot of the range of things that happened throughout the year. But you're a natural leader, and your attention to detail and acknowledging everyone that you come across from all spectrums of their involvement in the school district, I think particularly stood out to me too. So just thank you for being such a good colleague and a friend. So thank you for your tenure.
Mr. Hunt.
Thank you. Well, let's see, between Kathy and Angelo, I think I'm down to thanks. Appreciate it, because you knocked everything off. But Brent, your steady and calm way that you led this and collaborative, how you worked with all of us, you represented us, whether in the governance team, whether with the intergovernmental relations with other groups and departments, with our faculty and staff. And I think it obviously showed through when you represented us very well at the trying times at Castleview recently. And I think it was a fine day for the district because of your leadership. And it's been a great year because of your leadership. Again, very collaborative and something that I'm personally thankful for.
Thank you. Montserrat, do you want to say anything? I want to offer it to you. You don't have to if you don't want to. Yes. Okay.
Mr. Lee, I just want to say that since the first day that I met you, I felt very welcomed. And you were very sweet to my mom as well, even though she doesn't speak English. You were even trying to speak Spanish to her. And you said, I asked you, is it practice? You're like, no, my wife speaks Spanish at home. So thank you.
Thank you, Montserrat. Well, I want to thank you, Brent, because you have not only managed the board competently and capably, but you've showed real leadership, not just for the board, but for the district as well. You've worked with administration, you've worked with the public, you've worked with our staff, and you've implemented a number of procedures that have taken our district by leaps and bounds, and we're so very fortunate to have you. And as Tom said, your kind of nice low-key leadership, because too often there's just such a lot of hollering coming out of most people who are in elected office, but not you. And I think that's hopefully seen as a model to other people. So thank you very much. And let me show you, we have a gift for you, and you can show the audience if you'd like.
For the audience, it's a scrapbook of his entire year, and pictures and all the events that he's been to.
Thank you. Thank you all.
We tried to get you something up on your wall, but Anna suggested a book because your walls are filled already. So
Sounds like her.
I think
Thank
she questioned our taste. I think that was more. I think that was more the
Welcome
book
to my
idea.
world. So, thank you.
Mr. Lee, how about you? Would like to say a few words on closing party?
Thank you all. You guys are all too kind. I think I've grown a lot in the last year thanks to the support of all of you and the trust in all of you to allow me to serve as president. And I think that goes for Dr. Hanson and the entire staff for being supportive and complimentary and helping me grow as a person to help join all of you together in our collective efforts to push this district forward. So it's been a pleasure to serve as president, and but I'm also very excited to allow somebody else to serve next year. But thank you all. It's really too kind. Thank you.
Thanks, Brent. I will be calling on you next year. And Brent, I'm glad he's sitting next to me because he's going to have to help me use the little electronic thing here. All right. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Tonight, we have a couple more organizational items to take care of before we move on to our regular agenda. And item D4 is we have to elect a delegate from our board to the Riverside County School District Organization Committee, and the delegate has to be nominated by me, as I'm a delegate on the overarching committee. So I nominated Mr. Hunt, and Mr. Hunt, does somebody want to second Mr. Hunt's nomination?
Second.
Okay, and would everybody like to vote on that, please? Okay, hold on, there we go. All right. We got one more, okay. All right, carries. Congratulations, Mr. Hunt. All right, and our next item, I am up for reappointment to the California School Boards Association Delegate Assembly. This is delegates from all the school districts around the state get together and represent their districts from each of the boards. And I've served on that in the past years, and my term is up. So board, I'm willing to serve another couple of years if you would have me, but not unless somebody else wants to nominate somebody else.
No, I'd very much like to, and thank you for offering. I'd like to ask you to serve one more year and put your name in nomination. I've been there with you in the delegate meeting, and you're a very good voice for education and for the progressive part of where we're going in education and for the students. So, peers, I would put Mrs. Locke Dawson's name in that.
And I'll second that.
All right, thank you. Okay, everybody, let's go ahead and vote on that. Happy to do so. Thank you. All right. Okay. So next item on the agenda, we've got, let's see. All right, we are voting on the calendar. Is that what we're doing? Yeah, okay. So the next item on the agenda is our regular business and study session meeting calendar, and we need to take action on this item and vote on the following slate of meetings. Does anybody have any edits or anything they would like to add to this or change?
I would just ask, I'm sure Dr. Henson did this, but we looked at this to the religious holidays that we often.
Yes, we did.
Thank you, sir. Then I would move for approval of this slate of our calendars beginning in January.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
All right, Mrs. Alavi seconds, and let's go ahead and vote. All right, that calendar is approved, and this is just notification to all of you in the audience and anybody listening, but as of January, we are going to start meeting on Tuesday nights. So it's been the practice of the board for many years now to meet on Mondays, but it has been difficult for a number of reasons to maintain that. So we are moving to Tuesday nights, and everything will stay the same, except we'll have a closed session. We'll start at 5:30 and go into open session at 7. So that's a little bit different than what we're doing now. Okay, any questions about that? Anybody? No? Okay. All right. All right, now's the time we have to approve the certification of signatures, verifying the signatures of the governing board. This is an action item as well. Every year we have to do this when we have different folks serving. So would somebody like to move approval of the signature?
Motion to approve.
All right, Dr. Farouk, second? Mr. Hunt, all right, please vote. All right, thank you all. Great, okay. All right, so we are on to our special recognition portion of the agenda tonight, and we have a very special recognition we would like to make tonight, and we think I think it's appropriate that we had Castleview singing tonight because we would like Mrs. Tiffany Ferris to please come forward. Okay. Mrs. Ferris, the board would like to present you our second annual presidential award. We've only had this in existence for 2 years. You're only our second recipient, and that is for your bravery and courage and calm leadership that you showed on the day of October 31st when Castleview came under assault. And I know I'm not the only one that wants to speak before we all come down and get a picture. I think Mr. Lee would like to say a few words.
Yes, thank you, President Lock-Dawson. This is, thanks to Mr. Hunt, last year came up with this tradition, and as Ms. Lock-Dawson said, this is the second time we've been able to reward it. And the intention I think Mr. Hunt had when he brought this up was to recognize somebody in the community that supports the vision and the goals of our district and help push it forward. An individual who walks in lockstep with our mantra of every student, every employee, and every day. So this year we thought, while maybe not in its origination, it was intended necessarily as a staff award. I think this was kind of a special circumstance, and it goes beyond, at least for me, the actions on Halloween Day, but really just since you joined that Castleview community, your ability to build relationships with the staff, build relationships with the students, build relationships with the parents, to really bring that community at Castleview together was really important. And I think that work that you've done the last 2 years with your staff really came to a challenging point to test those relationships on that day. And I mentioned to you, I hope you don't mind me sharing, at a district office one day, it's like, I'm really glad you were there that day, but I'm sure you weren't. And you said something that really stuck with me, was that you're like, no, I was glad I was there that day. And of course, we were all glad that you were there that day too. And not just of the actions that happened that day and keeping our students safe and allowing each of our students to get picked up that day, allowing all of our staff to go home that day with their families, but the work afterwards, to see that the community responded to your leadership and brought their kids back because they felt safe on Monday, that the parents rallied separately from any of us and made sure the students and the parents and the staff all felt welcome in decorating that campus. So yes, it kind of came to a head on that day, but it just shows, because of all that work that you did ahead of time, the involvement you've had on that community. So in that respect, I really think that this award is in recognition of all your work in the community and why I think it's appropriate that you're our honoree this year. So congratulations.
It's weird looking at myself up here. I just want to say that it's hard for me to accept this award in some ways because I feel like there's so many other people that day who rallied the community as well. My classified staff, my certificated staff, the districts that showed up to support us that day, they really helped us to make a successful return for all of our students. My secretary's here today, and she was instrumental that day in keeping people calm and helping. And I feel like there's people who guided me to this position that are here today too that I want to recognize. First off, my parents, because I think that they guided me in life to lead me to be able to have a position like I have today. And also I need to thank my mentors that are here too, which are Debbie Osmond-Haskins and Gloria Cowder. They are great representations of what leadership is and have guided me. And Gloria was there for me after this happened and supported me, and I appreciate that. And honestly, I feel just honored and humble every day that I am so fortunate to get to be a principal, not only in this school district, but at Castleview, which was already an amazing community when I got there. And I just got to build on that, and how lucky am I every day. So thank you.
Thank you, Tiffany. And Tiffany, we have your plaque. Where's it going to hang? Is it hanging in the? It hangs here in the boardroom, so everybody will see it. All right, can I have the gavel, Brent, please? Thank you. So now I want to recess the public session of our regular board meeting, and we need to reconvene as the Board of Directors of the Riverside Unified School District Financing Authority and conduct our annual meeting. So I'm going to recess as the board and reconvene, or I guess convene as the Financing Authority. Mrs. Kakish?
Yeah, and good evening, President Lock Dawson, members of the board, Dr. Hanson, and this is an organizational meeting for the Board of Directors of the Riverside Unified School District Financing Authority annual meeting. And that is a board which is the same members of the district board that makes decision in the event the district in a position to go for financing of any of our facilities projects. So it's another organizational meeting that you'll ask for nomination and for the officers of the board.
So essentially, we need to vote on chairman, vice chairman, and secretary.
Correct. Your executive director, our recommendation is Dr. Hanson. Chief financial officer for the board would be myself, Mace Kakish.
All right. Can we approve the whole slate at one time if somebody nominates the slate?
Yes, that's good.
Okay. So somebody want to nominate?
Yes, I'd like to nominate the slate if I could, as chairperson, trustee Lock Dawson, vice chairman, trustee Dr. Farouk, and secretary, trustee Mrs. Alavi, and chief financial officer, our CBO, Mays Kadish.
And executive director, David Hanson?
Yes, I'm sorry, Mrs.
Okay.
Dr.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Hunt. Do we have a second? Mrs. Alavi seconds. All right, please vote. All right, thank you. So I'm going to adjourn as the Financing Authority and convene as the Facilities Corporation, correct? That's what we're working on now, okay. And it's a similar process, I believe, we've got to.
Yes, and again, similar process for reorganization of the chairman, vice chairman, and secretary. For this particular facilities corporation, you only need a chief financial officer.
Okay, would someone like to nominate our chief financial officer?
I'll nominate myself.
I can make a motion.
All right, or Mr. Lee
As
made
the
the motion. It's okay.
I think we need to make that motion. I will make that motion.
Okay, Mrs. Alavi and Mr. Lee nominate, okay. Please vote on,
You can do it as a slate too, for the chairman, vice chairman, secretary, and the treasurer.
okay,
I'll offer an amendment to Mrs., well, I can't do it now, we already voted. Never mind.
yeah, that's okay. Let's take the slate. All right, so we close out voting, that item carries. Mrs. Kakish, you're now the chief business officer.
The treasurer for this.
Treasurer.
I'm sorry.
And we've got a slate of chairman, vice chairman, secretary. We need to vote on that. If somebody would like to move.
May I move that the chairperson be trustee Lock Dawson, the vice chairperson be Dr. Farouk, trustee, and the secretary, trustee Mrs. Alavi.
All right, we have a motion. Somebody want to second it? All right, Dr. Farouk seconds. Okay, please vote on the slate. Okay, that item carries. All right, thank you, Mrs. Kakish. All right. All right, now we are going to adjourn as the Financing Authority and reconvene as the Riverside Unified School District Board of Trustees at our regular business meeting. And here's your gavel, Beth. She told me to use it. She needs it. All right, thank you. All right, so now we've got our reports by our high school representatives. So Always a favorite. We like to hear from our students, particularly at this time of year, lots going on. So our first representative is Madison Ramirez from John W. North High School. Welcome, Madison.
Hello and good evening.
Thank you. Hello and good evening, President Locke Dawson. Congratulations, Dr. Hanson and members of the board. A lot of positive things have happened at North since last time I saw you, and I will highlight a few of those things tonight. First, as you are all aware, we have a new principal, Mr. Nakamura. We are happy Mr. Nakamura has created a new culture of positivity on our campus. He is energetic and supportive. He can be seen around campus throughout the day, talking and interacting with students. When we have a dress-up day, he's the first to come and have his picture taken. On Halloween, he dressed up as Naruto, a Japanese anime character. He also participated in our Men in Pink fashion show during Cancer Awareness Week. Needless to say, he's awesome. One of the biggest changes brought about by Mr. Nakamura has been our new tardy policy. Any student who is late to school receives a lunch detention to be served that day at lunch. Mr. Nakamura has high expectations for all students, which begins with being on time each day. He feels that every minute of every period should be used for classroom instruction and learning. Mr. Nakamura made a video explaining his new policy, which was shown in second period classes and posted on social media sites. We are proud that we've had the highest attendance rating of all district high schools the past 2 months, and we have also led our cluster in attendance ratings as well. I know personally that this new policy is working. Initially, a lot of my friends were irritated about serving a lunch detention if they were late, because no one likes lunch detention. So students were making more of an effort to arrive on time. I was late to school a few weeks ago and received a lunch detention, and I guarantee you that I won't be late again. Also, I've noticed the attendance in my first period class has improved. If I go to first period 10 minutes early, the class is practically full. Mr. Nakamura's new tardy policy seems to be doing the trick. In regards to college and career readiness, our AVID program sponsored the Sophomore College Tour back in November, where sophomores were invited to an overnight trip where they visited Cal State San Diego, Cal State San Marcos, UC Irvine, UC San Diego, and UC Santa Barbara. And juniors in the AVID program and IB program will also be invited to do that in February. And for the first time, AVID and counselors sponsored the Click to Submit Day at North, where families were invited to the library. It started in the afternoon and followed into the evening, and they were invited to come click that final submit button on anything college related, so applications and funding. And so that was great, and there were snacks and like refreshments available to the parents, and then they were able to take Polaroid pictures for free to document the day, and it was really fun to see all the families celebrating. And on November 29th, we held our second freshman link assembly of the school year, and Mr. Nakamura gave a motivational speech where he talked about his own personal experiences, struggles, and challenges, and encouraged students to be empowered by their experiences and challenges as well. Many ninth graders shared their own stories and struggles, and it was really a uniting experience for the freshman class, and it was just awesome to see people volunteer and come up like that. And later that same day during fifth period on the same day, Mr. Nakamura also met with 148 ninth graders who earned 2 or more Fs during the first quarter. He encouraged them to take control of the factors that make us more successful, such as attending and doing homework and things of that nature. His talk was inspirational to our ninth graders. He will follow up with these VIP ninth graders at the beginning of the second semester and provide incentives for those who have improved. And finally, our boys and girls basketball team both won their season opening tournaments and will be traveling to Canada to play in an international tournament at Jasper Place High School in Edmonton, Alberta next week. And finally, I would like to wish you all a happy holiday season and on behalf of North High School. And that concludes my report. Does anyone have any questions?
Thank you, Madison. Any questions for Madison? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is Kylie Demchke from Riverside Poly High School. Good evening, Kylie.
Good evening, Mrs. Ogdawson and Superintendent Dr. Hanson and members of the board. We at Poly appreciate you allowing our absence at the last meeting because of the passing of our Poly teacher, Mr. Claudel, and former Poly student, Angie Gomez. On a more positive note, our fall season just ended for athletics, and our girls golf, girls tennis, boys water polo, and girls volleyball were all league champions, which we're very happy about. Our anatomy teachers just started a canned food drive, which will last the whole month of December, which we will be donating to poly families in need and the Salvation Army. Our PCL leadership group is introducing Student and Teachers of the Month to recognize various accomplishments around campus. And our link crew has been recognizing Freshman of the Week for academic, VAPA, and athletic achievements. Our staff just redid their staff meetings, so they are teacher-led staff development. And last week on Wednesday, our teacher, Mrs. Nelson, worked on teachers and their commitments to students. And Mrs. Neal, Mr. Lowry, Mr. Garcia led presentations on how to engage students in our heritage and legacy programs, which are very important to us at Poly. As for our ASB, we used our LCAP funding at the beginning of the school year for a back-to-school dance, which had free admission for all of our students. And we had 560 people in attendance, which was a really big deal for us. And at our homecoming dance, we had a 9% increase. And so overall, for the rest of the school year, we're hoping for a 5% increase in our student attendance, since we're really trying to advocate School Plus 2. And our preliminary HERO data and Tracks Accounting data shows that we've seen a significant increase in student involvement on campus. There's been an increase in club meeting attendance by 38% this year, and co-curricular membership groups such as mock trial, ASB, PCL, etc. by 6%. And I will have a better report for you as the next months come from our winter sports and our School Plus 2 data. Are there any questions?
Oh, I think that was a fine report, but I'm looking forward to the even better one next month, I guess. Does anybody have any questions for Kylie? No? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, next up we have Claudia Velazquez from Ramona High School. Claudia? Good evening, Claudia.
Hi. Good evening, board members, President Ms. Locke Dawson, Superintendent Dr. Hanson, and esteemed members of the board. A little update on my life. I submitted all my UC and Cal State applications last week, and my first private to USC Friday.
Wow, good job.
Thank you. And I also found out that I made it to semifinals for the Gates Millennium Scholarship, so hopefully I get it.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So first I want to start off with sports. Our football team received a banner for their achievement as the River Valley League champs. This is the first time since 1988. That's 29 years. They moved on to the playoffs. It was a tough game. We ended up losing, but we are still proud of the football boys, coaching staff, and parents. Our basketball team started off their season with a win against Sultana. This week, Ramona is hosting the Kiwanis basketball tournament. Our Ramona wrestling team won their first match against Arlington as well. This weekend, we had our monthly RAM Academy. Teachers came in on Saturday to help students who need to make up work, who need help, or to study for AP test. We are thankful for our staff for giving up their Saturday to help our RAMs. There were over 160 students in attendance. It's a pleasure to see students trying hard and dedicating themselves to their education and success. This is a big week for Ramona. Our theater will open its doors for the first time since, I think, a year at the grand reopening. If you have not had a chance to preview the incredible space, be ready to be blown away. It is without a doubt a jewel in the community. In fact, it's the third largest theater in Riverside with a seating capacity of 977. Everyone in the community is invited to take a tour of the new theater and stay afterwards for performances ranging from dancers, singers, pianists, and more. We hope you all can join us this Thursday at 4 p.m. Recently, Ramona has been working with a program called Go Guardian. This program notifies staff when students are searching keywords or phrases that could potentially be of self-harm. Ramona feels they should both work with students not only academically but also emotionally. Our SAP counselor, Kathleen Sarmiento, sends passes and emails to teachers about updates and alerts. She ensures everything is kept private to respect the students' confidentiality and safety. 3 weeks ago, our president, Mr. Cisneros, was involved in a startling event that ended up saving a kid's life. He states, "This past Friday, my phone rang at 1 a.m. It startled me. No good call comes after 10 p.m. I quickly woke up and got right on Aries. One of our students was in danger. A kid had been chatting with another one of our students, and after one of the kids disclosed that he wanted to harm himself, 10 minutes later, he posted on Snapchat something along those lines. The friend called 911 and reported it. An officer who got the call and had my cell phone number came and apologized for waking me up, but this was a serious enough call. After about an hour of searching for the kid, many calls later, and repeated text messages, the student was safe. It's an outstanding and most encouraging to hear that one of our students had the courage to report their friend being in potential danger. Additionally, before Go Guardian was purchased, we would have never known the student was searching potential self-harming behaviors and or ways to carry out self-harm. It's amazing what this program can do. A student's life is important to all of Ramona, not only their academics. On a very sad note, one of our Rams has left us, Todd McGurn, class of 2015. From the limited information we have, we know that Todd was currently serving our country in Iraq, and it is there that he passed away. This tragedy reunites many students who still attend Ramona and those who have graduated already. Everyone who knew Todd remembers his positivity and generosity. Ramona thanks Todd for his service to our country. He will always be remembered and has left a hole in Ramona. Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions for her? No? Okay. Thank you. It's an interesting program. Go Guardian. I'd like to hear more about that Go Guardian, so maybe staff can give the board an update on that. It's interesting. And last but not least, Carly Krohn from the STEM Academy. Hi.
Hello. Good evening, President Locke Dawson, Dr. Hanson, and members of the board. I am proud to represent the Riverside STEM High School tonight, and so far our school year has been very exciting. Firstly, during the week of October 16th through October 19th, our ASB hosted Homecoming Week for our Hollywood Homecoming Dance on the 20th. Each day the week was themed to fit different moving genres, such as grasshopper eating competition on Sci-Fi Day and a superhero water balloon toss on Action Movie Day. Our week ended with a flag football tournament and powder puff game between the different grades, followed by our dance, which was located in our lower quad. This dance was met with the highest turnout our school has ever received at about 150 students in attendance, which is over half our student population. Our ASB and Link Crew attended the CATA conference on November 14th using LCAP funds, and there our leadership teams were able to learn about the responsibilities of a leader as well as new ideas for our school events. This past Saturday, our high school speech and debate team hosted a middle school debate tournament on our campus. Our very own STEM middle schoolers competed in public forum and Congress debate with students from other middle schools and debate academies attending as well. Excitedly for our college hopeful seniors, our school counselor, Ms. Izquierdo, was able to have a representative from Stanford University come to campus to talk to our students about college admissions and preparation process. So that was very exciting as a senior to attend. STEM is not all about math and science, however, as our Arts Club Muse has been very busy this school year. They attend the Riverside Arts Walk every Thursday, or the first Thursday of every month, where club members show off their masterpieces. Additionally, they have had numerous guest artists attend their meetings, including Mr. Cruz, who taught them how to make stamps, Mrs. Unrath, who taught them how to make holiday cards this past week. Students of STEM's interdisciplinary class for seniors and juniors think tank have been very busy in preparation for our upcoming showcase in nature, culture, and history projects. Their hard work will be presented in downtown Riverside during the Festival of Lights this December, and community members are welcome to attend, so we hope you all show up. Additionally, think tank's outreach efforts have been successful as some of our students have partnered with UC Riverside's professor, Dr. DeLeo Winkler from the Physics and Astronomy Department to visit Liberty, Lake Matthews, and Franklin elementary schools. Think Tank also has more outreach groups that have visited the Monroe, Harrison, Madison, Fremont, and Victoria elementary schools in RUSD, and have been enriching their current science curriculum with fun student-led activities. To help with Think Tank, STEM recently hired program coordinator Mr. Harris in mid-October, and his role is to help coordinate these outreach opportunities and to help build curriculum for our STEMworks program, as well as working towards building partnerships with higher education and community partnerships. Last but not least, Riverside STEM has just completed its 6-year WASC self-study with a visit from the WASC Accreditation Committee in mid-October. The study involved parents, students, and staff members in an effort to determine the school's mission and vision and whether or not it is being achieved. The final results are still pending, but so far we've received very positive feedback from the visit. And thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Carly. Does anybody have any questions for Carly? No? All right. Thank you very much. All right, girls, you can stick around, but I know you all have stuff to do, so you're allowed to leave too. Thank you all for those fine reports. Next up is our district superintendent's report. Dr. Hanson.
Thank you, President Lock-Dawson. And for my superintendent's report this evening, I just have a few upcoming calendar events I'd like to mention. And first off, a little bit more detail. You can leave that slide up there, folks. As President Lock-Dawson mentioned, our board meetings are changing next year. The first thing that you'll see a little bit later on, but we have moved the board meetings from Monday night to Tuesday night. They're on Tuesday nights all year, except for in November. We do go back to Monday night because Tuesday night in November is election day. All the other days except for that will be on Tuesday. And the structure of our board meetings are changing. We will start from 4:30 to 5:30 in this room with all the student recognitions. The color guard, student pledge, student performance, recognition items through the high school student reports that we just had. Then we'll go into closed session from 5:30 to 7. Then we're going to come back at 7 o'clock to reconvene our regular open session with the superintendent's report, public input, district employee groups, consent, and et cetera. So just put that on your calendars, and our first meeting will begin in January. The other slide, I think there was another slide up there, gentlemen. Yeah, there you go. First and third Tuesdays of the month is when our board meetings are. The following months will have only one board meeting. They're up there. Pretty typical. And the following months will also include the study session. So the regular board meeting plus a study session. And that's what they took action on this evening. So just FYI, and this has been posted for several months on our website, and we want to just try to continue to get the word out there. Thank you. You can take the slide down. A couple other things that are just for information, and I know you're going to hear more later this evening, but on December the 7th, the California Department of Education will be releasing the Fall 2017 California School Dashboard Report and 5x4 and 5x5 other placement grids, which will be presented in more details later this evening, as I mentioned. And we have posted a resource for the public under our parent and California dashboard tabs on our district website to help the parents navigate and understand the report. Just want to remind the board of that. Also, our next actual meeting will be December the 19th, and that's going to be a special closed session or a special meeting to discuss and do for the year 2017, my evaluation, the superintendent's evaluation, and board members. You'll get other details, but that will be a closed session at the district office, conference room 1, I believe, from 2 to 5 p.m. On Monday, December the 11th, next week, is the Just for Kicks shoe giveaway event that will be held at Central Middle School in the multipurpose room from 5:30 to 6:15. This event is the project of the 2017 Leadership Riverside class, and over 1,200 pairs of shoes will be distributed to kids at elementary schools throughout the entire city, Riverside as well as Alvord. And remind the board also that same week on Wednesday, December the 13th, it's a busy week, but that is our annual Job Shadow Day with board members, executive cabinet, and our professional support staff members. And that's going to be all day from 9 until 1:30 p.m. And we will provide a lunch and debrief in the end, and a list of the assignments will be provided in this week's mail out. So please take a look at that. And again, that's job shadowing on December the 13th. And last, certainly not least, is special recognition. Many of you know Scott Lockman, AVID coordinator at Ramona. Scott was selected this year as Region 10 finalist for the California High School League of Schools Educator of the Year Award, and he'll be recognized at the Educator of the Year dinner, which will be held in January 2018. When we get closer to that event, we will give you more information. And that concludes my report this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hansen. We are at the public input portion of our meeting, and I do not have any cards from the public. No, we have no requests to speak. If anybody does have any items that they want to speak to on the agenda, there are cards in the back. Please fill them out and get them up to Mrs. Martin up here, and she will get them to us. All right, next we have our district employee group reports, and our first one up will be Mrs. Adriana Currill. Hello, Adriana. Please come forward. President of the Riverside Council PTA. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, President Lee, Mrs. Locke-Dawson, and members of the board, Dr. Hansen. Well, I have 3 words to describe this time of year in the PTA world, and that is busy, exciting, and rewarding. Busy because this is the time of the year with all of our units getting all their legal paperwork completed, all of their requirements that they need to make sure that they maintain an in good standing status. For those who don't know what that means, there are 3 things that they are required to have at this point of the year. One is they must have their taxes filed. It should have been done by November 15th. Their insurance premiums should have been paid. All their dues should have been paid and turned into state. And they have a minimum number of membership requirement that they have to collect at their school site in order for them to remain in good standing. So we've been busy working with all of them. So busy, 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 definitely. And then I also want to commend a lot of our volunteers are this year, I don't know what it is, but we have so many parents going back to school. There are so many parents, volunteers that are juggling, a work schedule, school schedule, and pretty much what is a full-time volunteer position. So I want to commend all of our parent volunteers in the district. The second word I described it with was exciting, and the holidays definitely help with that. Lots of school events on the horizon for this month. Lots of band concerts and choir concerts, and just a lot of really great things going on in our school. You saw the art float, all those spheres getting painted at the different school sites. So a lot of exciting things going on. Something else to celebrate is our new family members that we're bringing into the PTA family. A lot of new PTA presidents for the first time taking the helm, and it's a stressful, but once they get acclimated, it's a very exciting thing, and we hope that they all feel welcome, building all those new friendships. Like I said, this year saw many new unit presidents, and Riverside Council PTA has been very busy this year providing numerous training opportunities for all of them, and we will continue to do so more than usual as we go from site to site and help provide that one-on-one care that some of our units require, and to help them get the hang of it, develop new leadership, and nurture them as needed. Looking forward to the new year, I just want to pause for a quick moment to have a little advocacy moment. We advocate strongly in PTA for giving to our kids, and as we all think of things that we can do during the holidays to give back to our community, I just want us all to keep our kids in mind. PTA is the only child advocacy group that we have, and I know that there's so many volunteer things going on this time of the year with our churches, but one great idea that a fellow parent brought to me a couple weeks ago was maybe we can try reaching out to our local schools and seeing some of those past due lunch bills. And if you're looking for a great cause to donate, maybe consider paying some of those off for those kids in need. Also, I just want to remind you that we do have in January our California State PTA Legislative Conference is coming up. It will be at the Sheraton Grand Hotel. So of course, Council's been very busy preparing for that, scheduling our appointments with our assembly members and our senator that represent our area. And we had our orientation at the Family Resource Center last Wednesday. And we watched a video, provided some training, and we're getting those flights booked and that now. So I know that you had invited maybe some of your student board members and see if they're interested in attending. So please let us know if any more parents or any more of these kids come to you with interest, because we would love to get them on board. Again, that's January 21st through the 23rd in Sacramento. Of course, we will be advocating, amongst other things, the increasing per pupil funding for all of our kids and also advocating for the arts. So exciting times on the horizon. Thank you for giving me a moment to share that with you. And any questions?
Thank you, Mrs. Curiel. I have a question for you. I just want to know how many folks you had signed up for your legislative day so far.
Well, in our district, we have 2 students that are attending as of right now. I believe one is from Poly, one is a Riverside virtual school student. I actually should have mentioned that during my report. Sebastian Kay, he went to the legislative conference last year with us, and he, because of being a virtual school student, he has the flexibility in his schedule to attend our Riverside Council board meetings. We have just appointed him as our student representative on our board. So he took that position last week. So I'm excited about him.
That's wonderful. How many of your PTA members do you think?
I want to say there's 2 of us now, possibly 3. It's a little bit less this year because we found out that as California State PTA moved the conference to January, previously it was in March. This year for us, we're impacted because it just so happens to fall on finals week for our RUSD students. So that's definitely impacted the number of students that are just able to or feel comfortable going, even though we've had several of our administrators in the district express willingness to work with the kids on their scheduling of those final exams should they want to go. So
yeah, it's still tough though. But thank you for doing that. I appreciate that. I think it's a wonderful experience for our kids. So.
It is, and for our parent volunteers as well, to teach them also how they can lobby and advocate for our school district.
You've done a lot in that area, so I got to say I really appreciate your leadership there.
Thank you so much. Thank you all.
Thank
Happy
you.
holidays.
Next up, we have a employee report from Mr. Dan Rudd, California School Employees Association. President Rudd, please come forward.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Superintendent Hansen, President Locke Dawson, and members of the school board and the cabinet. Thank you very much. CSEA has been, 506 has been busy. On December 2nd, we had 3 members participate in our level 3 union steward training, and they will be eligible to be jacketed to serve our members. Those members are Leroy Jackson. He's one of our night custodian crew, so he's not here tonight. We have Tammy McBurney. She's a campus supervisor at Monroe Elementary School. And we have Marisol Espino. She's a food production worker at the Nutritional Services. And they'll be able to serve our members and the district better. On December 20th, we will be having our elections for this year's officers. For our executive board, we have 4 positions that are being contested, and we'll be voting all day. And after the voting, we're going to be having a end of the year Christmas party for all of our members with food, prizes, and a craft fair. And as always, I would like to invite the board and the members of the cabinet to come and join. It's from 4:30 to 5:30. It will be at Grant Elementary School in the NPR. And after the party, we'll be having our regular chapter meeting. But like I said, you guys are more than welcome to come, and you always support us, and we'd like to support you during the holidays. In March, CSEA is going to be having an organizing institute again, and hopefully we'll be having members. We've had members from our chapter accepted for the past 4 years, and it's a great honor. It's out of the 250,000 members of CSEA, they only bring in 20 to 30 people. So if you're accepted, and we've had members from our district, like I said, represent our district, very great. Again, I'd like to say thank you, and what an honor and privilege it has been to work with the cabinet and the district this past year, and recognizing that all departments are working with the classified and the certificated to make this district stronger. And from nutritional services to maintenance operations, they've been wonderful with working on our members and to make this district the strongest there is. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Rudd. We do appreciate your work too and your leadership. So
Thank you very much.
All right, we are at item L, the subcommittee reports. We have 2 tonight. One is our operations board subcommittee, and I think Mr. San Martin or Mr. Hunt is going to provide this. Or is that right, Mr. Hunt? All right, please take it away.
Along with Dr. Farouk. On the 17th, on the 14th of November, we had our operations committee very full. I've asked for, Dr. Farouk and I have asked for the packet to be sent to all of you. And in the future, we will show it on the screen because facilities involve so many things that obviously we have a lot of interest in, but so does the public. So I just want to go over a few of the highlights quickly. Most part of it's you're going to see coming up this week on the 7th. It was about the Ramona High School theater renovation, and without going into details, very impressive. And the project at that date was 98% complete, so we're looking forward to that. There was quite a few items that we'll send a list to you of things that were done in the summer of 2017 that were everything from sewer pipe replacements to Proposition 39, energy conservation, a lot of really good projects that were undertaken and staff completed. And then we also, this board has asked for the 3 schools that are in the Edison area, High Grove, Lake Matthews, and Woodcrest. We have sought through an RFQ proposals from photovoltaic companies. We got several, and we are, through our consultant, Sage Renewables, taking that down to 3 to 4, and has all these items that will come before the board for discussion and determination. We also talked about the upcoming, and it was just held, if you saw the paper recently, Riverside Public Utilities increases that could have, over the 5 years, according to Ms. Kadisha's estimates, $4.2 million of impact on us. As you know, that's about, right now, utilities are about 9% of our budget. So that would come out of the classroom. And Mr. Lee and I had a meeting with, and with our staff, with utility staff sometime after this. It was like early last week, wasn't it? And we just told them our concern and that we wanted to remind them, and Mr. Perry, Councilman Perry was there as well. We wanted to remind them that when those children leave their home in the morning to come to our schools, they're leaving a ratepayer's home, that these parents are already paying for this. And to put it on to us as well is punitive, we think, but we know by law they can't make an exception for us. So we have a different idea that we proposed to them to think about, and they're mulling over for an MOU, and that is that the money that goes in, and let's just say it's $500,000 the first year, just to pick a number, based on Mrs. Kadisha's estimates. That money goes in as, say, green money. They can't give us back utility rate money, but they have a lot of funds that they can use for community relations and scholarships and et cetera. And our proposal would be to give us back that $500,000. And we would be very open to using a portion of it for education. And I know Mr. Lee and I are speaking for all of you at this time, so that's just our idea. For education in utility careers, since, arguably that's one of the best companies to go work for in Riverside is Riverside Public Utilities, and particularly to bring back the T2, I think it was called, program, where it used to be, before the cutbacks, they selected 2 students at Ramona annually and would teach these 2 students to become linemen, which is a job that if you want to live in Riverside, you can get a job, or if you want to live in Tallahassee or Tacoma, you'll find a job as a lineman. And so they seem to be interested in that, also in ecology, where we would teach, stress that more in our classrooms, help our teachers with that. And the rest of it, we'd like it to be open for arts and STEM type things. So they're going to come back with MOU. Do you want to add anything to that, Mr. Lee? Okay. We also had a very important and somewhat timely, it already had started a few months prior, but I think it's something I'm looking forward to you receiving in writing instead of me going into detail here, but a security measures update, how to harden our campuses even more, particularly since we've, have them as closed campuses. There's a new district-wide visitor registration process that's already in place, coming along, that will involve, we hope, swiping of your California driver's license, whatever, that runs all sort of checks. And they would also print out a tag for you. We'd also be able to know better, we think, who is still on campus, that sort of thing. And Lastly, we talked about, and you were there, and it was Lincoln High School serving kitchen, the ribbon cutting on the 27th of this past month. Dr. Farouk?
No, that was great. Thank you.
If there's any questions, otherwise you'll be receiving this in your packets from Beth later.
Thank you, Mr. Hunt, for that very thorough and informative report. All right, our next subcommittee report is from the Finance Committee, and Mr. Lee, I think you're listed as the presenter.
I'll keep it brief because we're about to hear a presentation from Mrs. Kakish on the first interim update, but Mrs. Luck-Dawson and I met on November 28th to go over the first interim report, provide any feedback or any changes, and we didn't really have any. We asked you to provide the rest of the board the report that we heard from you on that 28th at this meeting. There was some discussion regarding a project manager to work within the operations and facilities capacity. We just passed a bond. We're going to initiate $100 million in the first issuance of projects, and that's going to require some oversight. So there was some discussion about how to tackle that position. In the past, we've worked with consultants to take on those extra duties with Measure B. But Sergio and Mays both suggested that the cost to do that is 3x, 4x to do so, and recommended bringing somebody in-house, knowing that that position would sunset at the conclusion of the spending of the bond dollars. So the conversation was regarding how do you pay for that person. We told the public that the bond money wouldn't get used to pay for any salaries or administration, and we weren't specific as to leaving any leeway on that. So I guess legally we can hire somebody with the bond dollars to run these kinds of facilities, but we just felt that that wasn't the right thing to do. So we asked Mrs. Kakish to do her magic and find a way to find another source of dollars to pay for that, so we can be true to our word to the public, because we thought that was very important. So again, it'll be brief because you're going to hear that report from Mrs. Kakish, I think, right next. Is there anything else, Mrs. Luck-Dawson, that you wanted to add?
No, that's terrific. Thank you, Mr. Lee. All right. We are moving on to our consent agenda, our consent items. Does anybody want to make a motion? Okay. All right. Can you put your mic on and ask that?
I just want to pull, I have a question on 25 through 28, if I could just pull those for question.
Okay.
Otherwise, I make a motion to approve the rest of the agenda.
Okay, 25 through 28. All right, and so we have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so we will approve, we will vote on the consent items. Minus items 25 through 28. We still have somebody needs to vote. Okay. Somebody abstained. All right. Yeah. We have one abstention. Who abstained? Montserrat, did you abstain? We need to know why when you abstain. You need to have a reason to state it.
I feel neutral about this because I need a little bit more of information. I kind of...
Okay, that's a good enough reason. Thank you. All right. So the item carries. The consent agenda is approved. Mr. Hunt, what do you need to know about items 25 through 28?
Thank you. In the past, we've discussed this. I think one of these are all field trips, and one of them talks about an impact of 500, but most of them say funding source none. And I know we've talked to Dr. Hansen about this, and I think we're collectively quite in favor of, anytime you're going on a field trip, that's because a teacher has done something great. And whether they're going to play basketball or they're going to Phoenix, the band's going to Phoenix, or Polly's going to play basketball in Vegas. And I don't want to have booster clubs and or to pay for that. We have to send a parent, or we have to send a district representative, excuse me. I want to be sure that we're covering those. So I just, maybe Dr. Lewis can explain if that's okay, Dr. Hanson, but so there is a fiscal impact, I believe, and I want to be sure we're covering it. Is that, are we not paying for?
Dr. Lewis?
Yeah, I was just going to ask who wants to address that? Dr. Lewis?
I will do my best.
Okay.
So in most situations, we are covering the cost of staff to attend.
Okay, just,
Yes.
so in the future, would just let us know, it's fine, just, it's a couple $1,000s, fine, just so we know and we're being transparent with our community. We had some concerns about that a few years ago.
Okay.
So with that, I'll move approval of those 25 through 28. Thank you.
All right, we have a motion to approve.
Second.
And a second by Mrs. Alavi. Please vote. Okay. We're missing somebody. Did you vote? We're missing somebody? All right, show of hands, because we're missing somebody. Approve. Do you want to abstain or do you want to approve this one? Okay, so we're going to approve items 25 through 28. Thank you. All right. Okay. We're moving on to our action portion of our agenda. And we have our first interim report, and Mrs. Kakish, I believe this is you.
Good evening again. So this is the first interim report, is the first update to our budget that we've adopted back in June to start for 17-18 school year. So this is the first time we get to bring to you an updated budget. Okay.
Can somebody help with someone in the back? We're having trouble with the.
Do I have it on? I'm like.
Okay, we got your first one up.
All right, thank you. I guess, yeah.
All right.
No, it's okay. I think it's, oh, it's not working. Good, thank you. Sorry about that. So the first, the second, actually, it's slide number 2, talks about total income for our budget, for general fund, and it talks about the sources of income. And so just to update you from adopted budget to first interim, like in the LCFF resources, local control funding formula resources, we actually grew about $500,000. But as you know, we have declined in enrollment of around 500, but we've increased in unduplicated count, which is another source for under the LCFF formula of revenue. And I just want to take the opportunity and thank all of our principals that worked with our Department of Business Services to increase that number to the extent that we actually offset the whole decline in enrollment and increased by $500,000. So just a kudos to all of our principals and our team from Business Services and Child Nutrition.
Dr. Farouk, did you want to ask a question?
Yeah, I think that's great, but I think it's important to note that although we increased unduplicated rates, it's restricted funds in the sense that it's meant for the supplementary, not the general fund. And
Correct. Well, it is all general fund and it's
unrestricted sense.
Right. What it does, it reclasses that revenue from being just for base grant revenue, which could be used for all sources of operations in the district, to supplemental and concentration grants, which specifically have to follow the LCAP plan. And so we intend to continue to follow that. Nevertheless, without that, it would have actually created a real hardship for our district to try to come up with that difference. But we will be mindful of spending it in the right area. Federal dollars, the increase is only due to deferred revenue and carryover. The state dollars, we were able to include the one-time dollars from the state that the governor had declared after we have adopted the budget. So that's in the state revenue. And what we did in the next two slides, 3 and 4, is give you just the same exact information by restricted and unrestricted differences. And a graph for visual. Then we go into expenditures, and the same thing, we will talk about all expenditures. And in this case, I just want to highlight real quickly that when you add revenue for deferred revenue or carryover from our sites or any of our programs, we also add the expenditures that are associated with that. So under books and supplies, we've added the carryover expenditures, and under capital outlay, we also did that capital outlay mainly for deferred maintenance projects that was added. And then what we did is we also separated that for you in unrestricted and restricted dollars. The next slide is just to continue to monitor total salaries and benefit as a percentage of our expenditures and where we're at in all of the categories. Then we, in slide number 10, are talking about the fund balance. So we're starting the year 17-18. After we closed the books of last year, we have a beginning fund balance for this year of $98.5 million, with income of $472, expenditures of $510. We are looking at ending the year with $60.5 million. And so in the next few slides, we're going to go over the components of the fund balance by these categories: non-spendable, restricted, committed, assigned, and unassigned. I'm just going to go through the slides and highlight a few. We continue to have some dollars in the development that we are also spending in the facilities area. We'll bring you back a plan for that soon. We also have mental health dollars that we continue to align to the plan that was presented to you in the last board meeting. In the committed area, we have committed some dollars for our increases in STIRS and PERS. And any available dollars is going towards mitigating the deficit spending that we're doing, most of it on purpose. The assigned, and this is where the creative dollars that, or the magic that Mr. Lee had talked about, I would like to recommend that we would pay that position from professional development dollars that we've assigned in SL Tower. We continue to keep some for professional development, but we also add some help for facilities in that area, and then continue to look for other sources because we do need it for ongoing. One of the things that Mr. San Martin, myself, and Dr. Hansen had discussed further, that there is, through our partners, we've talked to them about people that are available to help us also on an interim status, like the retired directors from other districts. And Mr. San Martin and I have our first meeting with one of them on Friday already. So we'll keep you updated on how we move with that process. And if we are not successful, we'll be recruiting very soon if we can.
So you want to just quickly, I think, just for everybody's information, it's project manager that will manage the projects that are coming through Measure O specifically. Correct. That's why we're talking about having them either on an interim or a not to exceed basis, correct?
Correct. Measure O projects only. They will be committed just to that. And again, if there's a slow period that we're not doing any projects, we might not use them as much. But for the most part, I think we're going to be very, very busy, that we have a lot on their plate.
I think so too. I think you're going to have, you go from managing a few projects to $100 million worth of projects. I think you could use some help. So.
Yeah.
Thanks for working magic.
Thank you. Let's go into unassigned. They call it unassigned, but it's really a requirement to have a 2% reserve for economic uncertainties, and that is currently $10.2 million. It's a direct formula from 2% of our expenditures. This is the other funds, all of outside of general fund, just as information. I want to highlight that the retiree benefits fund the irrevocable trust has gained up to now $1.5 million almost worth of interest or capital gain. Now, for multi-year projections, I want to talk a little bit about some of the assumptions that we've used. As you see, this is again in a total picture for restricted and unrestricted. If you look at 17-18, we're looking at spending $38.7 million more than that we receive. Majority of that, and I actually have a slide coming up soon, majority of that is one-time funds, one-time expenditures. So I'll have a list for you soon. But one of the things I wanted to also mention that we are bringing down the fund balance from 98 as an updated first interim number for fund balance down to 30 million in 3 years. And that is restricted and unrestricted. But if you look at the restricted side, it's only $2 million in that third year, 1920, and then 27 million of restricted dollars that is not necessarily available for, is that not available for all uses. So the assumptions that we're using here is, we've declined, is there?
Mrs. Alley has a question.
Oh, thank you. So I wanted to talk to you about this ending fund balance in 2019, 2020. That, to my knowledge, is the lowest that our fund balance has ever been. Is that correct? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm a page ahead.
This page? For unrestricted side, yes.
Yes.
It's probably, I mean, I don't know what, how long, but for a long period of time, like at least in the last decade.
Okay, so I wanted to ask you, what our cash needs are on an ongoing basis that where you would think that this would be an adequate fund balance? Because I'm a little concerned that it's getting so low. I do want to also keep the fund balance low, but maybe that's a little too low, and I just wondered what we could do about that.
I agree, and I think we in Cabinet have discussed that that's not definitely our comfort level. Actually, if all of the restricted dollars were to be spent tomorrow, we would be certifying qualified budget to the county and the state, and so that's not a position that the district would want to be in. At the minimum, that dollar amount needs to be $10 million, which is our 2% reserve, a positive, unrestricted $10 million. So I know we're working together to bring a plan to let you know how we're going to get to that level and keep it at that level. That level is still so low. That level is only 2 weeks worth of payroll for our district.
2 weeks of payroll isn't
So
enough.
I think CSBA had recommended that at a minimum, we should keep 12 to 17% reserve and not 2% reserve. So knowing and having a lot of uncertainties at the state level, and knowing that they have been conservative, we don't know what additional dollars they might be surprising us with in the January budget. We will continue to monitor and bring back to you. But most of the time, I am comfortable recommending a budget plan that has in the third year a minimum of 10 million. So it's not that you have to have today that, you have to have it in 3 years. And every 3-year period, there's a lot of changes that happen. There's a carryover every year that we don't budget for the next subsequent years. So we only bring it to you when it actually happens. There's one-time dollars we don't budget sometimes until they materialize. So every time you budget 3-year period and you only have 10 million at the end of that third period, it's still positive. It's still a good budget because there's a lot of changes that could happen. When we dip under the 2% reserve in the third year, then we're not balanced.
Could I ask you just really quickly, is there an industry standard at all for how many weeks or months of
reserve?
Money to cover salaries?
So federal government, for their programs, they require districts to have a 3-month of an operational cost. And that's reasonable. The 3-month of an operational cost is 25% of your budget. And it's, when you look at it, we did have it at one point $100 million, but it sounds unreasonable to keep while you have needs for the students in the same year. So that's the reason why we're not keeping 25% of the budget.
Okay, That's reasonable.
Mr. Lee has a comment or question.
Sorry, Mrs. Kakish, but I'll back up a little bit. So on slide 13, I just have a clarification. So in regards to STRS and PERS increases, 14 million, that's additional dollars as required by the state, or that's our contribution to STRS and PERS for that time period?
That's our contribution for their mandated increase in their rates.
Okay. Yeah, I just bring that up because I think it's a good example. We got back from CSBA and there was some discussion about, from some potential people that are interested in running for governor, talking about increases in education funding and lack of achievement tied to that increase. But this is just a good example. I mean, we all know, because we're familiar, that we're at funding levels from more than 10 years ago, so we're still not fully funded. Yet the state continues to require us to put more money towards things like STRS and PERS. So that $14 million, the state doesn't give us any additional dollars, but that just gets taken directly away from our general fund and anything we'd want to do with classroom expenses, right? So I mean, and this happens every year. So I just think it's an important factor to point out that, you know, $14 million just, yeah, it's going towards our employees and their retirement, which is great, but we don't get any additional fundings, which means less money for classroom and VAPA and other schools plus two and other things.
Correct. And that is not the total amount. This is just what we've reserved for the next few years. Over $20 million worth of increases to our budget. So cumulatively, if you really look at it, it's huge.
Thank you.
We are at, so this is the page where I listed to you some of the examples of the one-time expenditures that we have in the budget. So really, if you look at it, this year we're planning to spend one-time expenditures 34 million or 34 and a half, and we're deficit spending 38 million. So when you take that out of it, it's a reasonable still deficit spending. We're worried about a structural deficit that we don't want to be in, and so we will continue to monitor the budget to get to a balance where we feel we're in the right place. What else did I wanted to highlight? I wanted to highlight just a little bit of what's not in the budget, just quickly. So you'll know that they'll be coming to you with additional information in the second interim report. We are looking at the impact of the minimum wage increase. We're looking at fuel tax increase impact. We're looking at potential increases for PERS. You know, you mentioned STRS and PERS. PERS is looking at another increase besides the 14 million that we have set aside for that STRS and PERS. And we are looking at the potential utilities increase that Mr. Hunt had mentioned through the operational committee report. There's also other programs and plans that are coming to you in the spring in general, and we'll looking at the financial impact for those. All of that will be coming to you in March as an update for second interim report. Let's see what else is
Mr. Hunt.
Just, thank you. Ms. Kadesh, on the fuel tax, if I recall, our contractor gives us don't they give us a set number for their per gallon cost, or is it, I think we negotiate that. So is there something in there that allows it to go up by what we were just all hit with, or what?
Yes, they do, and there is some containment of costs as long as we're in contract. When it comes to transportation, our whole contract is up for renewal. And so our contractors, we're actually recommending to go out for requests for proposals, and we're looking at increases because everybody outside of our district is also looking at minimum wage impact, fuel tax impact, and so we are a little bit worried about what that increase would look like. Currently in the budget, in the multi-year projection, we've included 10% increase for transportation in general, including the fuel, but we believe it might be a little higher once we do the RFP, but we'll keep you updated.
Thank you.
Dr. Farouk?
Thank you, President Lockdawson. Ms. Kakish, great job on the report. I just have a couple of questions. The Reserve for Economic Uncertainties, that's unrestricted funds, right?
It's supposed to be unrestricted fund in the first and second year of our multi-year projections. It is there. In the third year, there's only 2 million of it, the 1.9.
So I wanted to kind of piggyback off of Trustee Alavi's comments about the third year. I just want to understand better on what generally our approach is going to be to mitigate that and what the time frame to come back, because I'm just trying to understand how it could be planned to be below the 2% threshold that's required by the state. Like, why would it even be planned in that kind of a situation? Like, was there some kind of a factor that we didn't anticipate, or I just want to understand that better.
It's not that we didn't anticipate it. There was few surprises. Enrollment decline is one of them. And the fact that the next year is also looking at another decline is huge. If you really think about just the enrollment decline, that's $10 million for this year's decline and next year's projection. So it was, in a way, a surprise for projections of enrollment. We have presented to the Finance Committee, not the last meeting, but the meeting before, a whole different process to approach enrollment projection that would give us tighter numbers and a lot more information from outside development and other districts, enrollment and private sector and charter schools. So we're looking at bringing you a lot more information with regards to enrollment. We've also implemented a new incentive for attendance to create more dollars in the unrestricted side, not just on the supplemental and concentration grant. So all of that, we're hoping to mitigate the decrease, but it was not planned that way. There was few surprises along the way, and it is a nature of our business when we do projections are only as good as them materializing.
Will there be an opportunity, and if my colleagues concur on this, for us to revisit the budget and what we're proposing for 2019 to 20 earlier than typically when you report out, given the light of those estimations?
Absolutely. We can bring you a presentation once we hear from the governor's budget for January, and we can start discussion and give direction to the Finance Committee. Usually the Finance Committee, the President and the Vice President will be on it too, so we can start the discussion there and give a lot more detail and direction to staff.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Would you please take a question from Mr. Lee?
Just to continue down that same path that Dr. Farouk was going down. I know we've talked about in the past, but we know that a lot of these challenges in regards to the reserve can be solved with enrollment. And we've talked about in the past a marketing campaign to recruit and retain our own students and some surrounding students that are looking for a district of choice. So I think this just further cements that necessity to make an investment in getting that marketing plan going.
Absolutely. We've had our first meeting. I know Dr. Lewis and Mr. Greason can attest to that. We've talked about our first meeting, and we are going to engage partners to help us into a robust campaign for marketing. It's actually one of the main mission for our communication department.
Okay. Sounds good. So yeah, look forward to an update on that and after you guys have a few meetings under your belt.
And Mrs. Kakish, we saw, I think it was in finance, we saw you gave us a sort of a demonstration of the model that you have for predicting enrollment going forward. It was in finance, right?
Right, the meeting before last.
Right, and I think it might be nice, I know Mr. Lee and I saw it, but it's part probability, part art. It's kind of interesting, and I know they've taken sort of a blended approach to a unique approach to forecast. So it might be nice either in a mail out or maybe just in maybe coming back and just give an overview of it.
Can make it a report in future meeting or a study session.
Yeah. Okay,
Sure.
Thank you. Any other questions from Mrs. Kakish?
I just want to give a shout out for the business department for all of their work on this report too. And Erin and Sandy are here, I think.
Thank you, Erin and Sandy. All right, this is an action item, board, so we need to approve the first interim, or vote on, I guess I should say, vote on the first interim budget.
I was going to make a motion.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm
That's
getting
okay.
ahead of myself. All right.
I will move for approval of the 2017-18 first period interim report.
All right, we have a motion by Mrs. Alvey and a second by Mr. Lee. Please vote. Okay, that item carries. Thank you. All right. Next on the agenda, we need to hear about the CBEST waiver. I think that's
Good evening.
Mrs. Ibarra.
Thank you, President Lock-Dawson, Dr. Hanson, members of the board. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the request for the variable term waiver, Ed Code 44252B, that's the CBEST waiver, for the individual named in the action.
Mrs. Alvey?
I'm sorry? I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, it just popped up again. All right, so this is also an action item, so we need to
Yes, I do need to
vote
take
on-
action.
Okay, so board, anybody have any questions for Mrs. Ibarra regarding the CBEST waiver? Okay, please vote. Well, wait, we need a motion in a second. Okay, Mr. Hunt?
Thank you, Mr. Hunt.
And Dr. Farouk, we'll give him that for a second. Please vote. All right, thank you. That item carries. I told you guys you got to let me get used to this thing. Got too many buttons to push here. All right. So next up, we move into, I think we're into discussion, aren't we? Yes, we are. All right. Dr. Lewis, hello.
Good evening.
Tonight you will be giving us a report on our college dual enrollment.
We will.
All right, thank you. Take it away.
Thank you. Good evening, President Lock-Dawson, Dr. Hanson, members of the board. Tonight we will have a brief update on progress we've made with our partnership with RCC and dual enrollment, and Mrs. Kakish will follow up with information regarding middle college. So just as a reminder, we have 3 ways in our district that our high school students can earn college credit while attending high school via articulation, concurrent, and dual. And as a reminder, articulated courses are where RCC will recognize our course as a like course of theirs, and students, when they complete, meet criteria, can receive college credit. Concurrent is where students can go to RCC and take a class. And dual is where we offer the RCC class on our campus, 3 different types. So we do have some new information tonight. The first piece is just for the board to see as a district. Recommended, that's the number of students that we have eligible to receive college credit. Most of this is articulated that we have worked out with RCC. So you can see we have 560 students that are awarded college credit last school year through articulated agreements. And you can see how that fits throughout. And then we go a step further, and I know this is awfully busy, but this just shows you our district has a makeup of how many students that are comprehensive, bless you, and alternative high schools that are receiving college credit while still enrolled in high school. There's one.
Mr. Lee has a question.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Lewis, just, quick question. So I noticed a majority of the schools, I mean, they're all different, obviously different number of kids, but a number of the schools have almost 100% recommended and awarded rate, while a few of the schools don't. And I was just curious to know why that anomaly would be.
So that is a great question. I don't have all of the details of the answer other than through the articulation agreement, we have to meet certain criteria and then we submit to the college for credit. So we are working on there's a paperwork process, there's a credit process, there's a grade process, and then the students actually have to go report. So we do have some students that have been, we would recommend, but they do not put in for credit. So part of the process on our end is helping our students get through the bureaucracy of getting credit. That's part of what we're going to hopefully solve tonight.
Is that it, Mr. Lee? All right, Mr. Hunt.
Thank you, Ms. Lock-Dawson. Dr. Lewis, just a question of, on any of these type of enrollments, do our young people, particularly if they're at the college campus, do they have to pay the tuition cost? I know it's not that much, but RCC, but are they paying tuition?
No, we cover that through LCAP.
We cover that, and what about books?
We cover that as well.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So currently we had presented, I believe it was just before the school year started, of what we were working with each comprehensive high school to bring opportunities to our campuses. Proud to report we have 3 existing programs that our school staff was able to work with RCC and pull off first semester. North, we have our education class, Ramona's our business class, and Polly's new class preparing for success in nursing. We are excited to bring King and Arlington on board second semester, either offering a comms class, comms 1 or comms 10, as we work on staffing and different agreements. So the goal is by the start of second semester, each comprehensive high school will have a dual enrollment offering, different than articulated. This is the actual college class taught on our high schools after hours by either our staff who's certificated by RCC standard or RCC staff.
Dr. Lewis, can you take a question from Mrs. Alabi, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. So if I'm at Poly, can I take the business class at Ramona?
Technically, you could. I don't believe we have many students doing that, but yes, you could because they are open classes through RCC.
Well, you would think that, I mean, transportation is an issue, I'm sure, for that. But for the opportunity to get college credit, I wonder if we're getting the word out.
We could probably do a better job.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Another thing to remember at this point that will make sense with the next slide is these are open college classes on our campus. So not only could I, as a Poly student, attend Ramona, but if I'm a member of the public, I could also attend through RCC because it is a college course on our campus. It's not exclusive for our RUSD students.
Before you move on, can I have you take a question from Mr. Hunt, please?
Thank you, Mrs. Loudhausen. Dr. Lewis, communications, do you know 1 in 10, do you know what those involve by chance?
I do not. We can find out for you.
I'd like to also have you, if your staff would look into, Dr. Hanson, the Norco campus of the community college district has a very successful game design program that young people with an AA are being hired right away into the industry. So I wonder if we could, I know it's a little farther away and you know, it's not as convenient as our little home base, you know, down there on Magnolia, but if we could look into that, with Dr. Hanson's okay, I appreciate that.
Will do.
I know we do have game design at EOC. They do have a class there. Dr. Farouk?
Thank you. Thank you for this presentation, Dr. Lewis. My question is, you made a comment that these are open Riverside Community College courses, right, open to the public. Are there any protocols about, you know, the fact that if there's an adult wanting to take this class in a high school with high school students, that how, you know, from a security and things like that, are there any extra provisions just to protect our students and everything?
At this time, there are not. It'd be like taking a night class, an after-school class that is just offered on our campus, where an RCC professor will come in. We don't have many outside adults wanting to take a class, but it is part of what we would have to offer. And you're going to see on the next slide some recommendations for provisions.
Oh, you are recommending for provisions?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. That's all. Thank you.
Mrs. Carmody.
I'd just like to piggyback on that. Our city college has done a great job, though, with actually providing us the opportunity to fill up the class with all of our students before opening it up to the rest of the students.
And I understand that's the intent. I'm just thinking of the small instances where there could be some incidents, so to be proactive. Thank you.
So that leads us into next steps. At this point, dual enrollment has been a combined effort between RCC, like Mrs. Carmody spoke, in our district, providing the best type of program we could based on availability. In our relationship with RCC and the meetings we've had during the semester, we would like to pursue the opportunity to develop what is called a Ccap agreement, College and Career Access Pathway. And as a quick highlight, what that would allow us to do is we would bring back to the board late winter, early spring, a proposal that would be a joint effort that would make it unique for our RUSD. And the opportunities, it is designed around building a pathway that is unique to each comprehensive high school that would make our RUSD the priority of a sequence of courses that would then be able to articulate either to RCC or into a four-year college. It would expand the number of credits that would be available for our students, and that it would also be able to look at enrollment just for our RUSD. So it's part of a partnership, and under AB 288, just as a quick brief, the purpose of AB 228 is to expand dual enrollment for the goal of developing a seamless pathway from high school to higher ed. And that's that has been our challenge. We want to develop that seamless pathway. So currently Dr. Angulo is working with all of our site principals and working with Dr. Isak and staff on what would that look like, and we will be bringing back a report right after the first of the year to the board if that's something we would like to pursue.
I have a question. It's okay. My question is, are there other districts around that have this agreement? How does it work in other districts?
The best example would probably be Roosevelt High School in Corona.
Okay.
They have developed multiple pathways with Norco College, as Mr. Hunt spoke to, where it is, they develop a pathway that will align with early preparatory classes at Norco College, and then they begin offering, just like you would see in a catalog, but it is a course sequence where you would take course 1, course 2, course 3 with a goal of X as a transfer student, rather than a class here or class there.
But those particular classes are offered only to those Roosevelt High students, correct?
That is correct.
So it is exclusive then? It's not like the night class arrangement?
That is correct.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. Hunt?
Thank you, Ms. Douglas. Not to push you into a faster lane, but just to share with you, I've had friends that are executives over at Cal Baptist say, how come you're not doing this with us? Is it possible to be able to do the same kind of program? I mean, we're blessed with 4 higher learning, just, in a small area right here with La Sierra, RCC, Cal Baptist, and UCR. Is it possible to do this with 4-year institutions?
I would have to look further into that. I don't know that answer off the top of my head.
I'd be interested down the line, if you would. Thank you.
Okay, absolutely.
Dr. Hanson?
Thank you, President Lock-Dawson. And I sent an email to the board last week. I had a meeting last week with Chancellor Burke before he retires and goes off in the sunset. And at your request, tentatively, we have scheduled that joint trustees meeting. I believe it's on January the 30th is the tentative date with RCCD and RUSD. And so I'll be working closely with President Lock-Dawson to plan that. But one of the events, in talking to Dr. Isak and Chancellor Burke, or one of the agenda items for that meeting, is this very topic about that seamless pathway, about increasing dual immersion, with some other topics that he and I brainstormed that we could have. And so as I work with President Lock-Dawson on developing that agenda, just look for a deeper dive on these issues and others with the RCCD staff, with the RCC staff, and as well as our school board. So I just wanted to let you know that. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Dr. Lewis.
You're welcome. At this point, I'd like to turn over to Mrs. Kakish for a middle college update.
I get to talk about the last sentence in the presentation, just to give you a little bit of an update about where we're at with the middle college in the idea in our district. Mr. St. Martin, myself, and an architect met with cabinet members from RCC, and we met at Central Middle School to see if there's an opportunity to try to reconfigure the facility there to house a middle college, which would be 10th through 12th grade. And we're also talking, and Lynn and Ryan are helping us with some ideas regarding having to reconfigure the middle school, and so that way we can have some continuity from 7th, 8th, 9th grade possibly, and then it goes naturally into 10th through 12. And then how the actual configuration of the facility and where would that be housed, as far as frontage and back for high school versus middle school students. Also looking at whether we do need to separate administration. We could have same administration covering both schools. We could have them be one school. All of that is being examined, and we'll be bringing back recommendation to you at a future facility study session with all of the possibilities, but it looks exciting and there's some ideas out there. So just wanted to open up for any questions regarding that concept.
Thank you. I don't see any. All right, is that the end of your report, Dr. Lewis? Are you done? Okay, all right. There are no further questions from the board, so we look forward to seeing Mrs. Kakisha's report. We are going to take a 10-minute break, okay, before we move on to our dashboard discussion. So please return here at 8:20. Thank you. We are giving Mrs. Carmen Day her due. We are respectful of your time. Thank you. Go ahead, Mrs. Carmen Day.
Good evening, Board President Locke Dawson, Dr. Hanson, esteemed board members. Tonight I am going to be sharing with you our 2017 California School Dashboard Update. If you recall from our last meeting, October 16th, Dr. Roger Yoho was with us, and we talked about our success indicators and the state dashboards coming out in the near future, the 5x5 placement reports provided to schools and our communities to allow us to see a placement of where we are with respect to the state accountability system. So today, we're going to look at each of those dashboards. I want to make note before we do that we'll be going more deep into the dashboard specifically for English learners in January, for our math results in February, and for our English language arts results in March, and then we'll continue on with the indicators after that as well. I want to set the stage also by reminding us about the data and how we look at it as an organization and in educational services around the right drivers of building capacity around the outcomes that we get to close the gaps that we may have and improve our program, that we're doing that within collaboration versus working in isolation, that pedagogy takes priority over the integration of technology, and that our systemness continues to be refined. All of this through a shared leadership model that involves the cycle of inquiry. I wanted to remind you about our success indicators, and if you remember, they do align and mirror with the state dashboards. The first, though, in attendance, we specifically in the dashboard will be looking at our chronic absenteeism, and then we also look at our average daily attendance or positive attendance. And then down at the bottom there, you'll see the student engagement piece, and we look at the Gallup poll, which you know through that, but also we'll be looking at suspensions. As our team looks at the specific definitions of our indicators, we likely will be adding those two areas so that we can be more intentional and explicit about measuring those. Just as a reminder on the rubrics that you'll be seeing, this system was put into place not only as a status measure, but also for growth. So now we have performance and growth. You'll see the status in these 5x5 grids on the left side and the change across the top. Also, you'll see the color coding from red to blue, red being the lowest and blue being the highest. The star in the center is an indicator of the target that has been set by the state and is through the Every Student Succeeds Act at the federal level. This is kind of our 7-year target, so I'm just reminding us of that target as well. Within the next 7 years, we should all be in the green. That means all districts in California. This looks a little different than what you have seen in the past because in the last meeting, we looked at it as just like green and orange. And this time we're showing it in alignment with those colors that I just showed you. So for example, ELA Smarter Balance, we are orange on that 5x5 grid, whereas we're green in the graduation rates. Okay, and remember, reading by third and early numeracy are local indicators, and so we won't be reporting on that tonight either. And then the college career indicator you'll see in white as well, and that is to be determined as far as comparisons. And the chronic absenteeism included in the attendance is also going to be something that we have a baseline for, but we'll need another year's data to have the growth matrix for that. A couple of updates I just want to mention. You recall that our state's moving from the CELT to the LPAC for the English Learner Progress Indicator. ELPI is, of course, the educational acronym. And I just wanted to make note of that in particular because this year it is involving long-term English learners, and we will be getting double credit if they progress and are reclassified. The other piece I want to mention is the identification of districts or LEAs with respect to technical assistance or differentiated support. And that is in areas of pupil achievement, pupil engagement, or school climate. Also, our student groups can put us into that. And recently we were notified for our students with disabilities, and that is a student group, obviously, and that we have been in the red last year in the baseline year, which actually wasn't a full year, and then this year. So we will be doing some extra work in that area. In 2018, we will receive support. Those are the main updates I wanted to provide to you. We're going to jump into our first dashboard. This dashboard is for English Language Arts, and I'm going to take a little bit more time on this dashboard so we can kind of examine it, so the rest of them should go a little bit more smoothly. So on the left side, you'll see the status, and the right side, you'll see the change. You'll see it says average distance from level 3, and this has to do with what our students receive on their scores and the average of those from the beginning of level 3, or the standard MET category. You also will see the color coding all the way up, and we are going to look specifically at our school sites and where they land on the 5x5 grid. I'm going to give you a little bit of information about where we compare with the 15 largest districts and and the county, just verbally, and also the points that we would need to move into the next section within the next year.
Mrs. Carmody, can you take a question from Mr. Lee, please?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mrs. Lock-Dawson. Can you give me a little bit more details on what level 3 means?
When your son comes home with his sent his CASP results, he is provided with a grid of different colors, and he's either not met, nearly met, met, or exceeding. And so the actual number of students who have met in their score, they are provided an average. So I do have an explanation slide if you will allow me to go back to that slide. It's way at the end here, I hope. Let's see. It's not way at the end, okay. So that slide basically, so let me go back to the explanation then. So if a student scores at level 2 and maybe 5 points away, and then there's another student that scores at level 3 and is 15 points away from the beginning of that level, the average score is what is utilized. And that's how they come up with the score cuts on both the progress as well as the change. So and we can provide you with more information, but that is basically distance from 3, what that means.
So level 3 is that, does that basically, they're meeting standard at level 3?
Correct.
Got it.
And it's an average of students.
So it's
not meeting
it's average distance from how far above or below they are from meeting standard.
Yes, that's how they establish that distance from 3, they call it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, and I also want to make note that what you see on this grid is grades 3 through 8, not the 11th grade. The 11th grade is calculated into the College Career Index. I do want to make note of that. I believe Dr. Yoho mentioned it, but I want to remind you of that. So in a little bit more information here, you'll see us as a district in the yellow. Oh, I didn't go all the way back. I'm sorry. Let's go to English Language Arts. There we go. You'll see us as a district in the orange. You'll see some other schools in the orange, and you'll see that they are listed at the bottom of your 5x5, just because there isn't enough space, so we listed it that way. And the 5 schools in yellow you see listed below those orange schools. Within the 15 largest districts, here's just a little bit more information for you. RUSD is one of the 9 large districts that maintain the ELA change level, and we were middle in the largest district for status. Okay, so we're at maintained, and we were middle for status. Within the county, we were one of 11 districts with an overall performance level of orange out of the 17 districts. And as with respect to status, we were 5th out of 17 in the county. So the reason I'm actually verbally telling you this is because our data is still embargoed. We determined that we would provide it to the board tonight, but we did not want to provide you with data from other districts until it is released. And then in the future, I wanted to make a note that if we gain 3.1 points, we would move into the yellow, and 6.3 points would allow us to move into the green. So just to let you know, we have our eye on that. We understand the importance of knowing where we're at in our numbers for moving forward as well. Okay. And then in mathematics, it's a similar grid. You see the status on the left, the growth on the right. Again, this is 3rd through 8th grader students comparing with the starting point of level 3. And I wanted to say again that the college career indicator is what houses the 11th grade data. You will also see for the 15th largest districts that RUSD is in the middle of the largest districts for status. And we are one of 12 districts with the overall performance level that are orange. So there were 11 other districts in our county that had orange as well.
Mr. Hunt has a question.
So, thank you, Ms. Lantos. Where do you use the fleur-de-lis, and it says 5 schools, and it says declined significantly? That in your...
Correct.
So
we were at the status level of low and the change level of 4.2% for the 15 schools.
Yeah.
We were already at the status of low, and then we declined 4.2 points. If it was 3 or less points, we would have stayed in the maintained box. Does that make sense?
Yes, and the ones with the fleur-de-lis declined significantly?
Oh, the 5 schools?
Yeah.
Those were the ones that, yes, they declined more than 15 points, and they were low.
Thank you.
I'd like to give you a little bit more information for us to gain. If we gain 3.1 points in the future, we would move to yellow, and 13 points we would move to green, due to both the status and the growth being met. And then in the next 7 years, we would be expected to gain 33 points to meet the state's target, that star that I talked about. So definitely reasonable to do so in the next 7 years. I'm going to move into the ELPI, or the English Learner Progress Indicator. And this one is definition, progressing towards or maintaining English language proficiency. Currently, as a district, we're in the yellow, but I want to tell you what is that made up of? It's made up of progressing on the CELT. It's made up of reclassification, and it's made up of those long-term English learners. And remember, we talked about getting credit now for long-term English learners making progress in CELT, but now we're also getting another point credit if they are reclassified. So that's a great opportunity for us as a district. So basically, you get credit for students who improve or maintain their English proficiency. You get double for our long-term English learners, and definitely get credit for those who are no longer English learners by being reclassified, just in a very common language.
No, your mic stopped.
Okay.
That's it.
Wanted to make mention that if we have 2.7% gain, we would move into the green due to both status and progress increasing. So that will be a target for us and to meet a state goal.
Would you please take a question from Mr. Lee?
Sure.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to kind of understand these numbers that you're showing that would help us get to some of the goals that the state has for us. But so what does 2.7% gain
If we,
mean?
where,
Like, what does that
where we're
mean?
placed right now on the yellow,
Yeah.
if we have a 2.7% point gain, we'll move to the green, which means that we would both have a status and a change to level. So if you look.
We're like at 73% or something like that.
Correct, 72.3 is 72.3. So if you look at the left-hand side and go to where it says 67 to less than the 75, that's where we are now. But we would need that 2.7 to get up to the 75. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so over the last, we have our baseline year last year, then we have this year. So over the last year, we've maintained our position of between 67 and 75.
Correct.
Do we know where we were the year previous?
We had it was an 0.8% less than 1% decrease.
Okay, so about the same. Okay.
Yes.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we do have 8 schools in the red, and there was a question that was asked about why, as far as data, from a data perspective, and a lot more weight is placed on making progress than reclassification, and these schools made less progress with students, students meeting language proficiency. And so that is part of that, as well as a couple of areas that we're looking at as far as systems and structures and ensuring that we're meeting our procedures and guidelines to reclassify our students as well. I'm spending a little more time at this slide, even though we were yellow, just because there's a lot of information, but remember in January, we'll go deeper. We did redrop those reclassification numbers from the previous year, and that was also part of how our district landed and maintained. I believe if we can get those numbers up and obviously get that 2.7% gain, we'll be in the green next year. Okay, I'm going to.
Can you give me an example? I don't want to pick on any of these schools, but I'm just trying to understand how this works. So if a school declined significantly and was very low to begin with, what would we attribute that to, and what does that mean in terms of English learners at that particular site?
Okay.
Like in terms of number being classified, number reading at grade level, et cetera.
I don't have it broken up by the progress reclassification and Littell's specifically, but those put together would be the percentage that was calculated. So that would be a school that was low would be taking specifically the increase at least one level or maintain proficiency. Well, they did not, and they did likely not receive extra credit to a large number for the Littell's. And then, because this first one that we're looking at shows all of the schools, and that means that they also declined in their performance.
Okay, so
which means they did not redesignate as many students or reclassify as many students, and the progress was not positive with respect to language proficiency.
So do we know how the state comes up with this average? Do we know what weight they give to these particular variables?
I would need to call on a data expert to tell me about the weighting, because I don't know specifically. Carmel's coming up if
I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, I mean, this is obviously a very confusing and new method to measure academic success or academic achievement. So if a school is, I mean, I can understand if they decline by 10% or increase by a certain number, but what does it mean to be less than 60% English learner progress?
Hi, good evening.
Hi.
The formula, if I can just real briefly go over that, is that they add the number of students that are making progress on the CELT, and there's various ways that they can demonstrate that progress. They add that to the number of long-term English learners that are making progress on the CELT. We get the additional count for that. And they add that to the number of students that reclassified the previous year. That's the numerator. And then they divide it by the number of students who take the CELT and add that to the number of students that reclassified as the denominator. So any movement in any of those 3 points, progress on the CELT, long-term English learners moving on the CELT, as well as reclassifications, can make a difference in a school's status percentage as well as the change.
So then they'd be equally weighted.
Well, when you add them in, the CELT is probably more weighted because of the fact that they count the long-term English learner progress as a second time.
Got it. Okay,
Yes.
I see. Hence, that's when you're saying double count if you get them reclassified.
Long-term English learners
Yeah.
are the only ones that are can give us 2 points.
Okay. Sorry. Thank you.
Stay close, will you?
Does that
Thank
make
you.
sense, Mr. Lee? Do you understand that a little bit?
I feel like I need a calculator and a scratch pad, but yes, thank you.
Well, conceptually, at least,
Conceptually,
knowing what
yes.
the variables are that they use.
Yeah.
I mean, without knowing that, I think it's difficult to figure that out. Okay.
It's complex. That's
yeah.
part of why.
Mr. Hunt.
Yeah, I just want to help me understand. I mean, I'm going to pick on Bryant just because I'm picking it out here over on the very right, Bryant Elementary. So I'm going to the top line. So what it's saying is that Bryant, though they're low, 60 to 67, I guess it says, they did increase significantly. Is that what that's, if they're made in the crosshairs of that matrix?
Yes, they probably increased in the percentage of students that made progress on the CELT and possibly also the number of reclassifications. We'd have to dig that into the school data specifically to determine that.
Okay, so those last three, maintain, increase, and significant, is where we at least want to see things moving towards.
With respect to growth, definitely that is the right response. And our goal is to actually have high status or maintain status and the growth.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Alavi?
Well, I just want to say off the bat that I hate standardized tests, and I don't think they're as valuable as the state would lead us to believe. I was looking up some statistics, and I realized that the National Academy of Sciences came before Congress and said that there was no studies ever that showed that a standardized test increased academic performance. And if we think back to our own education, we all know we've taken a class and done badly in a test, and that has no bearing at all on whether or not we went to college or succeeded in life. What I hate most about this is the fact that good teachers who are working very hard every day somehow look at this and think that they're not being good teachers. And I don't believe that's the case, because we walk through classrooms and we know that there is a lot of learning going on. And this is not in any way indicative of what Riverside's about. That being said, we can't ignore it because the state's given us this system. But the state's not transparent about this system, and that's what I'm angry about with the state. The state doesn't give us the information, and it doesn't tell us afterwards what they've graded on. They don't give us the analysis in any way to make it useful for us. And we're left with these bizarre boxes, and trying to figure out what this means in terms of our day-to-day work. So I would like us to be cognizant of them and work especially where we see any kind of red flags. But I don't want our whole district to kowtow to these tests like we did to No Child Left Behind, because that became a series of years of just bizarre efforts to move up in this testing. And it was way too much of an emphasis on testing. So I don't know how to say that any clearer, is that we as a district, we need to concentrate on what we know works, and we know what works, and we need to not be part of the crazy team that is working from Sacramento to inflict this upon us. and put this in perspective so that our teachers can work and do what they do best. What I'm really also upset about is that California seems to not be growing. If you take a look nationally at all these tests that everybody's being given, there's a variety of tests. And for some reason, this California test isn't showing growth, and everybody else across the country is showing growth. Well, doesn't it make you want to throw up your hands and go, what the heck? What are they doing that we're not, or what is our test not doing? And we must remember that these tests are subjective, they're created by people, they're graded by people, and I just don't think that our whole district ought to feel bad because for some reason, this test does not indicate exactly what we think it should indicate.
Tell us how you really feel about standardized testing, Mrs. Alavi. All right. Dr. Farouk.
Thank you, President Dawson. So my question is somewhat related to what Trustee Alavi spoke about, but I have a question, and it's kind of a fundamental question. So the state has variables on what they're choosing to measure, what weight they're choosing to assign to these variables, and putting out this information, right? My question is those variables and the weights assigned with those variables, how does that align with internally as a district what we deem as value and of emphasis? Because to Trustee Alvey's point, there could be a school of thought that, about the limited, the value of testing overall, theoretically. So I just want to know, as of now, what has been our approach in terms of the way, those variables and the weights? Like how do we, and I'm not expecting you to have the answer, obviously, across the board for everything, but just generally speaking, how much as a district do we align with that? And where do we differ? I think that would be very interesting to know.
If I understood your question correctly, it really goes back to what we value as an organization as far as what we want our students to leave with. Is it that foundational that you're asking?
Well, what I mean is we are making allocations, we're placing value judgments in how we're allocating our budget, for example, right? And whatever we're emphasizing with professional development, different things, we're making some judgments on what we think college and career ready for every student every day. That's what we're trying to do as a district. That philosophy, how is it in alignment with what the state, through these metrics, is deeming as a value and how they're weighting those values? How much as a district do you think we align with that and we don't? And my question is not, I'm not expecting you to fully answer it right now, but it's something I would like us to think about, and I think the board might be interested in understanding how that lines up or doesn't line up.
And I'm not going to answer it in full right now. We will do that as we roll out all of our indicators. But remember, we did choose the indicators prior to the dashboard coming out, our success indicators. And maybe there's a couple of these that are a lot more exclusive as far as, just chronic absenteeism, rather than saying as a whole district we want positive attendance, or a couple of those. But in general, that alignment is part of how we're measuring our actions and services for our students through this data. So I don't know if that is just the tip of the response for that, but we'll go more deep as we continue.
Yeah, I think what would be helpful for me, and this is just, again, big picture, not expecting you to answer it now, is it really how the state's methodology and their weighting and everything just really drawn out more, and then contrasting that with how our internal dashboard and how our focus is. Because I'm not necessarily disputing if there are discrepancies, because we might not, and we probably don't agree necessarily with how the state is valuing these, but I think that just gives us some perspective on how we're choosing to invest our resources.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, Dr. Hanson, you have your slide
Yes,
on.
thank you, President Dawson. Two things, just briefly, with what Dr. Farouk said. Again, a reminder for all, the 5x5s just came out. This is new for the whole entire state. And so as we take a look at the 5x5s, go more deeply, see the different weightings, see the different the cut points between, low and medium, we'll be able to come back and answer that question. But this is brand new. Things just came out last week. Second thing, along the topic, but separate, because I saw some people looking, just some housekeeping. Just remember, because this item is embargoed, we did not post it online with the agenda, and we don't have hard copies in the back of the room because it's embargoed. There's one hard copy in the back room back in a white binder that we need to have it stay here. But these will be released, as I mentioned in my comments, December the 7th. That's the plan. But because it's embargoed, we really shouldn't be talking about it because we're RUSD and it's happened in a few days, and this is our board meeting, we decided to go ahead and show the board. And so if you're wondering about the copies, where they're at, they're not there because it's not to really technically go out to you for a few more days. I just think that you need to know that through housekeeping. Thank you.
Okay, well, then let's go through them quickly, I guess, if we're not supposed to be talking.
Sure, okay, well, we'll move. But I do recognize the question, and we'll continue to respond to that question because I think it's really fundamental for moving us forward as an entire district. I'm going to move into college career. So if you look at the next slide, you've got the college career indicator. This is another complicated formula, but it does involve the 4 areas that we have talked about that we want to measure in our secondary high schools or high schools. It involves the CTE. It involves the dual enrollment, AP and IB, and the A through G completion. Now, this also does take into the calculation our CASP, ELA, and math scores. So this is where it actually is calculated into this. I want to make one mention of something that's going to be different in 2018, and that is the fact that we will actually be able to count articulated courses in dual enrollment. This year, we were not able to do that, and that is a pretty nice number for us. And you'll see where our schools land with respect to this status. Once we have multiple years of the data, then they're going to be discussing in 2018 exactly how it will show up, but this is how we were able to display it for now.
Mr. Hunt.
Thank you, Mrs. President Lock-Dawson. Ms. Carmen Day, can you define for us or provide us with the state's definition of prepared? You have it in quotes both times.
Well, they would say, utilizing these 4 or 5 areas that I just provided to you, that when they meet the green box, the target of either maintained or growing and the status of high, then that would be considered prepared. We say a student's prepared when they are ready to leave our schools, and so the state's definition is a little bit more metrics-based, but that's what the state would say. So as far as the 5x5, we would see the green areas being the target, and they would be met as far as prepared for a high school student be prepared.
Now, these are 11th graders taking this test, right?
Correct.
Right. Does Lincoln STEM and virtual also take these tests, or they're not listed? I understand.
They're not listed because remember they're all alternative sites and they are on a different. They're on a different measuring. I think Dr. Perez at the last meeting talked about DACA and how we were asking for that, our last alternative site to be put through that measurement system.
Okay, Mrs. Carmody.
May I continue?
Yes, please.
Okay. So just real quick, with respect to the top 15 districts, we fall right in the middle of the large urban districts. With respect to our high schools, we would need a 9.3% to move up into the high level. And we are 4th highest percentage in Riverside County, not listing the districts that are ahead of us. I'm going to jump into the graduation. The graduation rate is, current graduation rate is compared to a 3-year average graduation rate. And the status data is from 15-16 school year, so it's a class of 2016. So this is a bit delayed at this point. But our graduation rate, as you've heard, is, and you look at the 5x5, we're in the green. We have 94.4%. We're in The potential positive movement is very high at 0.6, and that's very positive for graduation. And I wanted to also mention that we were in the maintained and high together. So very positive, 4th highest among the 15, and 7th highest among the 17 unified school districts. Okay. And then you'll see suspension rates. And remember, this is all under engagement. And this is a little bit different. So you'll see it's like a reverse goal. You hit towards the green and the blue if you decrease in suspension rates. And again, chronic absenteeism, that's why we lump them both together at the end. But so low is good in this one, okay? And this is the suspension rate is the number of students suspended, not necessarily, not the number of suspensions specifically. You'll see that we are green in this area as well, and we declined by 0.3 to 1, as I mentioned. And again, you'll see the schools and what boxes they're in.
Mr. Lee?
Thank you, Mrs. Lock-Dawson. Ms. Lynn Carmen Day, so I know we just got this information, it's relatively new, but as we kind of process this information, are we going to be able to look a little bit deeper in terms of subgroups, student subgroups?
Absolutely. Okay. And actually, we'll be doing that in all of our 5x5s. We'll be looking at student groups.
Okay. Thank you.
Out of the top 15 districts, the largest 15 districts, we are one of the only 3 that showed decline, which is good. And we are one of the only 5 in Riverside County that showed decline, which is good.
I think what's confusing about this, I'm just going to throw this out there right now, is some of these measures are singular measures and some of them are indices of multiple measures. And then they're put in this chart, which is just, somebody needs a class on informatics and how to present stuff. So not you, the state.
I would love for you to go up and teach them.
There are
Patricia
really good
Lock-Dawson, ways that
to
would be
present
great.
data. Oh my goodness. Okay, sorry, go on.
So this was
Suspension of
elementary
middle schools.
schools. I'm going to flip right now to our middle schools.
We need to take a vote to move past 9 o'clock. And I need to check in with our student board member to see if she would like to stay past 9, or you're welcome to leave if you'd like. Okay, all right. So Mr. Hunt moved to stay past 9. Second, okay. Why don't you all just raise your hands? All right, everybody? Okay. We can go past 9. Thank you.
And
Mrs.
we're close to finishing
Okay.
now, because now on the next grid, you'll see the middle school, and then you'll see the high schools and where they're placed on the 5x5. And I'm going to show you the last indicator, and it's not in dashboard form as of yet, because as I mentioned earlier, we would not have it till next year as far as chronic absenteeism. This is basically taking the chronically absent, if they were enrolled for 30 days and they're absent for 10% of that time, 30 days or more, I should say, and they're absent for 10% of that time. You'll see the data up here per school. For our total district, we have about 4,859 students that are chronically absent. That's about 10%. It's a little lower than we had anticipated. Well, actually 3% lower than we had anticipated. And the other note on this one is on all of our indicators, we still have a lot of work to do, but we have declined from this previous year internally 9% in our chronic absenteeism, so that's very positive. We know we have other work to do since we're 7th out of the 15th largest districts, and we're 5th in Riverside County. So we do have a lot of work to do, but we have cut that drastically with our internal data from last year, or previous year to last year. In conclusion, I want to make note, again, we're going to be coming back, but we also are working with the school teams at this week's principal meeting, and our last principals meeting, we dug into this work with principals, and they are looking specifically at their data, taking it through and developing, first analyzing, then developing what they need to do in order to move, no matter what color they're in, and what it means when we say building capacity in that area specifically. We'll also be bringing plans back district-wide as far as our support into the sites at the board meeting, as I had mentioned earlier. And as Dr. Farouk mentioned, we are still working towards an internal dashboard, and that's really important to us so that we can have real-time measurements. It's not just once a year, but we can benchmark this and know as we are going. We feel we have the right team in place. We're doing good work, but we're also digging deeper into what we can do better.
Mr. Hunt has a question.
Back to the absenteeism. Are you saying on that one that Summit View has an 81% absenteeism? Chronic, whatever.
Chronic absenteeism.
So
which
what is
would mean,
chronic? Yeah, what is that?
Which would mean that out of the days attended, 10% or more they're absent. So I don't have the details on that particular site, but we can provide you with more information.
No.
Oh,
Well, how?
Let's go.
Okay, help me understand this, Ms. Carmen Day. At Arlington High School, there at the top, 12.5%. You're saying that 12, on average, whatever, chronic, 12.5% of the students are absent.
Chronically.
Okay. So then below, you're telling me that at Lincoln, 65% of the students are chronically absent?
I'm gonna wait for just a moment while
Mr.
Gary
Walker
McGuire.
has his light on. I think he can speak to it.
So the definition of chronic absenteeism is 10% or more of the number of days that the school has been in session. So at the beginning of the year, if there's been 30 days and you've missed 3 days, you're chronically absent. As the year goes on, this is to date. This was last year. As the year goes on, 180 days of attendance, you miss 18 or more days, you're chronically absent based on the criteria from the state. So yes, at Summit View, 81% of the kids attending Summit View would have had 18 or more days of absenteeism, or if they came in at a point of the year, 100 days, then they missed 10 days or more.
So what's your plan to address? Oh,
Can I add another clarification? The alternative schools are a different animal because of the way they do their attendance. It's not just a full day of attendance. It's like an hourly thing. And the state's still working on what the criteria is for those. So in my view, it's doing 10%, but it also depends on the work you turn in, when you turn it in. And there are variables there, so we have to get a better handle on that.
Well, that's going to be a great question. Doesn't Lincoln sort of run on the same kind of schedule as our comprehensive high schools do? Or, no, they are
It doesn't.
different.
It runs more like EOC does.
EOC, okay. Thank you. That's very clarifying.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Walker. Dr. McGuire. All right, Mrs. Carmen Day.
That's it. I just wanted to let you know what our next steps are, and that we'll be back for more in-depth presentations to you regarding specific dashboard areas, and that we are working hard, our principals are working hard to dig deep into the data. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Carmen Day. Mr. Lee, do you have a question for Mrs. Carmen Day before she leaves?
Not a question, just a comment.
Okay.
I know when I first saw this information, I kind of went back to those old ways of thinking where you kind of like, what in the heck? Like, all these things that we're doing, and we're trying to do all these innovative strategies and support systems in place to help our students be better achievers. Since I've been the board, we haven't done any kind of metric like this. So it's, I kind of have mixed feelings about it. And you kind of go back to those old ways of the, kind of like what Kathy mentioned, the tail wagging the dog, where the state is telling you whether or not you're doing a good job or not. So my concern is, and I guess my word of the day from at least this board member is going to be grace. And that's, grace to the district staff and the leaders that work at the district office, and grace to the principals, and grace to the teachers. And after I kind of digested this information, I got really concerned that we'd kind of go back to the old way of doing things when we're trying to get to that magical 800, where we start putting a lot of pressure on site leaders and site teachers to beef up scores and become more punitive rather than supportive. So I just want everybody in this room to know and everybody watching that I know this is not telling the whole story, and why, yeah, we have to be aware of it, because this is, unfortunately, the public, the community, the parents, they don't understand all this. They're not in the weeds like you all are, as we get from time to time. So we just got to do a good job of continuing to tell our story, and I think for the time being, continue to stay on track and keep the mission going, and continue to check in on some of these metrics, because we know we can do better in some of these variables that they're measuring. Whether or not that's going to end us up on green or orange or blue in 3 years or 5 years or 10 years, to me, that is not as important. And one thing that really stuck with me last week at CSBA was in regards, there was a speaker, Diane Ravitch, right, wasn't her name, public school advocate, and she was talking about how we really got to stop letting other people tell us how to do our job. And we got to stop letting Sacramento telling us whether or not this is a good way to measure achievement or not. We got to stop letting colleges telling us whether they have to take the SAT or the ACT. We just need to make sure kids are learning and that kids are understanding the standards. And I think if we can internally measure that and come to some kind of a balance with meeting these states so they don't stop funding us, then I think there's some room. So to all of you, thank you for all the work that you continue to do, and don't get off track of the good work that you're doing, and grace from me tonight. So thank you for all the work you do.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. All right, we are at the end of our board meeting, and it is time for board member comments. Let's start with Dr. Farouk. Do you have any comments, Dr. Farouk, tonight?
I just want to thank everyone for, for all their efforts that they do to serve our students, and I just want to wish everyone happy holidays. Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Mrs. Alabi?
Thank you. Tiffany's not still here? Oh, yeah, you're here. My comments have to do with a conversation that we had while I was at the school board conference about how special Riverside is. And this was connected to the Castleview incident, but it goes beyond that. It has to do with different people complimenting us, our city, our school district, for the way everything came about, the way we react, the way we interact with our city leaders, the way we do things in Riverside, how unique it is, how special it is that we have that kind of city. And I was very proud about that. And I shared with, in this conversation, one of the things that was striking to me, and I hadn't told anybody about this before, but I have a good friend who lives above the park where the children were walked down to while they were leaving Castleview. And she was there and she could see the whole thing from the school all the way down to the park. And so she was kind of a firsthand witness. And her comment to me was that unless she had known what was happening over at Castleview, it would have looked like a happy field trip to the park. The kids were that happy, organized, together. And she said when the parents came and picked up their kids in a way that would not have indicated what was happening just a block away. And I said, well, there's a whole lot of good things happening in Riverside, but sometimes we don't notice them as much until there's something for us to focus on. But this is an indication of what a special place Riverside is and what a special town it is. And I wanted to share that experience. It was a great conversation, very proud of what goes on here.
Thank you, Ms. Alabi. Mr. Lee, do you have any comments?
Just quickly, wanted to compliment and thank Ms. Carmen Day for leading one of the panel discussions for whole system engagement at CSBA. She was worried that nobody would show up, but we had a great turnout of attendance, and a number of attendees had came up to me throughout the week complimenting her and just the content that's being done through whole system engagement in this district. My favorite conversation was the last day in the morning. There were 3 student board members, all from Fremont, that came up, and all 3 of them thought that that was their favorite presentation they had heard throughout the week. So kudos to you. And they wanted to bring that back to their district to see if they could implement some of the strategies that we have had. And then 2 quick things. I had lunch with Dr. Lewis when I was down in CSBA too, and I joked with him that Miss Hill, when she was here, she always would joke with me that I always love it when board members get back from these conferences, because we come back with all these ideas, and who knows what they'll stick. But 2 of the ideas that we kind of threw around and sparked some, I think, more conversation that I'd like to have staff look into was in regards to homework. So as a parent of a first grader and kindergartner, homework is already frustrating. And I know that there's some studies out there and some schools that are looking at minimizing homework or doing away with homework completely. So I think I would like to look into that and see how that's working in other districts and other school sites. And then the other has to do with grades. Not advocating that we do away with grades completely, but maybe at some of these new school sites that we're looking to attract students to, or we're trying to market our district to increase enrollment. Maybe we look at new ways to measure student success. So just like we know this is just one measurement. There was a school, and if you guys remember that Jamie Cassup, he came to Google guy, he came like 3 years ago. So he helped start a school called the Phoenix Code Academy. It's a high school, and they don't have grades. So you either understood the material or you didn't understand the material. And it kind of goes back to that argument about why are we letting colleges dictate how we're going to admit students. So just, I think, another innovative approach that's happening elsewhere in the country, and we're an innovative district. So I'd like to look at these things too. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Mr. Hunt.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Lockdawson. Well, one of the things I always come back with when I go to the delegate assembly is I usually want to hug my fellow trustees and all of our staff, because particularly when you're a delegate and you're sitting there with the 600 other delegates, you socialize, you get to know a lot of them, particularly your own region, which is 25 districts and kind of this area out to Imperial County as well. And you sometimes come back and go, oh my God, is that terrible what's happening there and that. So we actually have it pretty darn good. A couple things to report that I think are notable. One was a legal seminar that Mrs. Lockdawson and I attended. It was just excellent. But one of the things they brought up, there's a case working its way through the courts that if the proponents prevail, it would essentially prevent the CTA and perhaps other unions from demanding or just
compulsory dues.
Compulsory, thank you, including political dues. And okay, no matter how one may feel about unions, if you're in education, one thing I really learned over this time is that, school board association, great, we don't have a PAC, and even CSEA doesn't have a big PAC. The one who's guarding education up there for us, the one who's really pushing things, we may not always agree or whatever, but we agree most of the time, is CTA. And this is not a speech for them, but at the delegate assembly, we concentrated on 2 things. One was, and this is where it ties in, the growing power of the Charter Schools Association here in California and how they're becoming extremely politically active. We saw that they spent $500,000 to win a school board race in Los Angeles. They didn't do that because they think the person's wonderful. They did that so they can control who allows charters in and out. And they're scheduled to spend over $100 million this year on races and advertising against the public school system. And at the same time, if CTA loses that power, we're in for a real, monumental shift in how the politics of K-12 education is going to happen, and something we need to be aware of and take note of. Other was standardized tests. Ms. Alavi's correct. They'll be acceptable the day that kids come in standardized form. And one of the things that CSBA did talk about, I was glad to hear it, and it's something that Dr. Farouk and Mr. Lee were just saying, is that and what leads me to is that we've got to be sure that we protect our faculty and the rest of our staff in this, and, you know, from Dr. Hansen all the way, because it's so easily just to slide back into it's poor teachers. It's, you know, everybody's got these poorly trained teachers and all of this. And they shared the story, and I know that Tim knows a bit of these testing scores came out, and there was a gentleman who was, you know, a single fellow that had just dedicated his life to teaching and thought he was a good teacher and spent time with kids after school and all those things that most of you do. And because of it, he took his own life. And so that leads me to Dr. Hansen, and fellow board members, the public's not going to give this much time. They're going to look at the orange and green and red and think of DEFCON and that sort of thing. And they would slide back into, poor schools in Riverside and all that. We have to be sure that, even though the paper's different these days, that we're telling the story not in a spin manner, but in an intelligent attempt at clarity about what's happening and our concerns, but that we're working with them. If we don't tell the story, then someone else who's probably not in our favor is going to tell it. So I hope we do that. Happy holidays to you all, and we do appreciate, despite that chart out there, all the work you're doing. I see all the principals were here tonight. I wonder why you're all coming here. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hunt. They all came for Miss Ferris, I think, right? See her award. Montserrat, do you have anything you'd like to say?
Thank you, President Locke Dawson. I'm sorry that I sound like a toad, but I'm getting sick, so pardon me. I would like to first begin by thanking the board for allowing me to have this position and allowing me to be on this side of the dais and joining you all. I also want to thank everyone that gets the show on the road and helping me out with this monitor and just overall just easing me into this position. And I am overall very excited to have the privilege of bringing my own perspective and my peers and my friends' perspectives when I'm here in this position. And I also have I want to mention something. I don't know if it's a possible future agenda item, but Dr. Farouk mentioned to me that this year's main focus, one of this year's main focus is on English learners. And this year at Arlington High School, a new club called Las Hermanas, which means the sisters in Spanish, is having their first meeting this Thursday, December 7th. It's specifically called Sisters because Ms. Rodriguez, who is the advisor of this group and also the English and ELD teacher at my school, she mentioned that there is a greater quantity of males over females in her classes. And for example, in her first period class, there's 17 boys and 2 girls. And she also mentioned that the girls are very sweet and full of energy, but they get lost in the crowd because of the social and cultural barriers. And they usually stop attending higher education or don't view it as an option. And overall, with this new group of like sisterhood, our goal is to allow these young ladies to have a safe space to speak about anything in any language that they want, because usually it's not just Spanish, they have different dialects that they know as well. And we're also gonna have tutoring sessions. And overall, we just want them to make connections and relationships with powerful women and peers, administrators, and overall to become self-sufficient. And I also want to add that as an English learner, or when you're learning anything in particular, you want a comfortable and a safe zone. So that is what we are implementing. So thank you once again.
Thank you, Montserrat. We'd like to check that out. Maybe we can get some more information about that too. Okay, so to me, I guess, Mr. Hunt mentioned that he and I had attended a legal seminar at the California School Boards Association meeting last week, and he mentioned the union issue going forward. But there was also quite a bit of time spent on social media and how Essentially, there are very few precedences set now in the courts and how it's all sort of being made up as it goes along. And one of the attorneys speaking said, we as school boards now, because of certain decisions that have been made, can now be responsible for activities that go on outside of the school day on a weekend on social media if it involves our students that are in certain cases, and there's a lot to talk about that. But essentially, the Supreme Court has decided that social media is the new public square, and free speech is protected there, but it's also being applied the same limits. So it was interesting. There was also a lot of talk about special ed and the new standard that's being applied. I know Mr. Walker talked about this before, but it's no longer okay just to have a minimum goal for our special ed students. It needs to be appropriately ambitious. And I think our folks are all getting trained up and working on that as well. So it's really interesting. Anyway, I want to thank everybody for everything this year, and staff, you've been great. I don't know that we can have a better district, better board, better folks who work here, and I mean that in the biggest part. And that we have the grand opening of the Ramona High School Theater on December 7th, Thursday at 4 p.m., I think, right? So come one, come all. I would like to also say welcome, Montserrat. We're glad to have you on board. Can't wait to hear more from you. And Dr. Hanson, you did leave one thing out of your superintendent's report, and that was that your son-in-law received his MBA this week. So congratulations on that. So it's a big deal. All right, tonight we would like to adjourn the meeting in honor of Dana Greiner, who taught at Washington Elementary School for 22 years before retiring, and also Army Corporate Todd McGurn. He was the graduate from Ramona High School who lost his life in service to our country while deployed in Iraq. So we will adjourn in their memory tonight. Thank you all.